to get you, Barbara.
Never play in the cat.
Someone's in the back seat! Tell me where you are, John!
Wolfman's got Nards!
Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. I've got a live stream for you today. As you know, I'm going to be doing a top 10 zombie horror movies of all time, in my opinion. And I've had this idea for quite a while now. But what I really wanted to do was kind of share my opinions with someone else and see what their top 10 is as well. And luckily, my friend Davey Deathray has decided that he wants to do a top 10 as well. And what we're going to be doing today is sharing each other's top 10s and seeing how much they differ. So without further ado, guys, here comes Mr. Davey Deathray. How you doing,
How's it
Davey?
going, everyone? Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Barry. This is, I know I've said it a whole bunch on social media all over. People are probably like, shut up about it, but it's an incredible honor, man. I've been watching you for a really long time. And, you know, to just kind of get noticed by other content creators here in the community and, you know, to be able to be a part of this video with you is awesome. And it's kind of surreal. So thank you so much.
No, it's not a problem. Again, thank you very much for coming on and accepting to come on as well, Davey. One thing I do love about your content and your opinions as well is that there is a lot of things that we agree on, which I know that you know that, but there's a lot of things that we definitely would disagree on. And I can kind of, I feel this list being slightly different from each other. I can't imagine my 10 are going to be the same as your 10. So it will be quite interesting to see the stark difference, because I think there will be quite a difference in our top 10. Now, I don't know Davey's top 10. Davey doesn't know my top 10. One thing I did say to Davey is it needs to be, and again, his top 10 might be different, but it needs to be zombie films. And I don't mean it has to be strictly like George A. Romero's zombies. It can be all types of zombies, but it can't be ones that feel like they're not zombies. But if you do say ones that are definitely not zombies, but you think they're zombies and you've got a reason for it, then absolutely fine. Because there is one on my list that I consider a zombie movie because I feel like the characters are zombies because they've got zombie traits. But maybe you would be like, oh, wait a minute, I don't really think that's a zombie or not. Is there anything on your list, without saying it, that you think might not be considered pure zombie?
I don't think so, because I think my only question, because I am a massive Evil Dead fan, you know, I know that those are demonic possession movies, but the first time I watched them, you know, as a kid that hadn't really seen very much, I'm like, is this, you can kind of say that they're zombies in casual conversation because they're not really acting of their own accord anymore. But I think, you know, the older I got, the more movies I saw, I'm like, okay, there's a clear difference here. I just wanted to make sure, because the last thing I wanted as the guy that says he loves Evil Dead is for you to put Evil Dead on your list. And then I'm looking like some punk that's like, oh, I completely left it off. Wow, what a jerk.
Yeah, you don't even like Evil Dead and it's your favorite franchise.
Yeah. I'm a fraud. Everyone, YouTube is going to expose me. I just bought the poster at some Spencer's or something the other day. I don't even know what it is. No. I think we got pure zombie here. Feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah. And I promise you there's no Evil Dead on my list. So
sweet. Awesome.
You're absolutely fine. We'll see who's in the chat first of all. And also, guys, whoever's in the chat, and Davey, if you want to read any comments out, you certainly can. If you want to communicate with anyone, by all means, this is your floor as well, not just mine. But anyone who's in the chat, if you want to tell us, you don't have to tell us your top 10 if you don't want to, but give us a few examples of what you hope to see in either of our lists. Maybe let us know if you think you know what's going to be in our list, because maybe you know us more than we know each other. So let's look into the chat. So we've got Fight the Good Fight, who says happy Saturday and happy 420, folks. Do you know, it's a shame here in the UK. I better watch what I'm saying because of the job that I do, but we don't have cannabis. It's illegal in our country, unfortunately.
Do they even have medical? You even have medical out there?
We've got things like CBD oil and stuff. But it takes out all the effects. So it's only for medicinal purposes. So we don't really have anything like that. And I know that start in California, where it was all legalized, and then it change different states?
I
Or
think in California, they just started selling it, even though it wasn't like federally legal. Yeah, they
right,
decided there to just like allow themselves to sell it. The feds would still come in and mess it all up. But then
right,
I think Colorado might have been the first state to really make it a thing. But
right.
yeah, it's available in a whole bunch of states out here. And my wife and I are everyday cannabis users, but I usually reserve it for when I'm not, working, or, I consider this work too. So, just in the free time at night. But
Do you
yeah,
smoke it, or do you
a
like?
little bit, but living in the desert, it's tough with the flower. It just like dries out, So we do a lot of like the higher quality vape cartridges that, they don't give you some of the lower quality ones can really kind of mess you up. So we go for the high quality stuff and, some edibles, some fun stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
occasionally smoking a joint is super fun. So
yeah.
there's something romantic about it. So I can definitely,
Romantic.
resonate with, fight the good fights sentiment there on Happy 420.
Yeah, I thought I would mention it anyway, since it is for you
Yeah.
guys 420, and it's
Yeah.
officially 420 everywhere. Yeah. So there you go. Who else have we got in the chat? We've got Davey Deathray.
Who's that
We've
guy?
got Nick Push's horror channel. It says hola, everyone. Hello.
How's it going, Nick?
Dog
Great to
Tanya's in
see
the
ya.
house. Barry, we know your names, Barry. Well, at least it's not Wolfman. That's fine. And by the way, I don't mind if people call me Wolfman. It's just a joke. But my name is Barry, for those of you who don't know. Who else have we got here? We've got
We got Gene Whitacombe. What's happening, Gene? Great to see you.
Gene is in the
Fishing with
house.
Fish Gal. Yes. How's it going?
Hey guys. Well, we've got someone who's already made a Fight the Good Fight says 28 days later. Who knows? It may or may not be on the lists.
Yeah, and that is one that you could sort of say, is it really a zombie movie or not? Right? I think
That's a good point.
that's one of those for sure.
Yeah. Dog Canyon says Dawn of the Dead, which is obviously an obvious one. And
Wait,
they
what's
also
Dawn of the
says
Dead? No.
I believed you there. Night of the Living Dead, Tom Savini remake, Dog Tanyan says.
Hey, we'll see.
We've got Frank Riker in the house.
What's happening, Frank?
Oh, these two guys. I guess I'll stick around. At least you'll understand one of us, Frank.
Oh God. Yeah, I hope my shirt meets your standards today, Frank.
You want to see my shirt? I made my shirt myself. You ready?
Yeah. I know what you did last Christmas. That would be awesome if they did something like that. Like, why not Christmas in a small fishing town? That would be amazing, right?
There you go.
I think I like those vibes.
Can I make it like 30 Days of Night? I know you love that film.
Yeah.
Fishing with Fish Gal says, maybe an unpopular opinion, but I prefer Dawn of the Dead 2004 over the remake. That's quite a...
I think you did a whole video about that, right, Barry? That you think it's arguably better. Didn't that just come out like during the anniversary? Wasn't the anniversary back in like February?
Yeah. I'm getting old.
You got me nervous thinking that I confused you with some other YouTuber, but you're the only one, Barry. You're the only one for me.
Sorry about that. Everyone's saying hello to each other. That's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Sally said the Dead from 2010, a zombie film set in Africa. Not many people talk about it. Oh, I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, I'll have to put it on the list, Sally. I want to. There's a lot of movies I haven't seen, so yeah, this is great hearing about good films that people recommend that have totally, flown off the radar for me.
I'm going to have IMDb opened up as well, so that if anyone wants to make recommendations, I'm going to actually write them down and add them to my watch list. I'm sure I've heard of The Dead before. For some reason, I can picture the poster.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've heard of it. I feel like it's great. I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, geez, I have so much to learn still, but it's awesome to be able to put things on the docket, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about having people jump in the chat and building the community here on YouTube is people fill in those gaps that you have, as a fan.
There's also one thing I forgot to mention is after this video's done, I'm sure you might be the same. You probably remember a zombie film after, and you're like, oh, I should have added that to the list because I think someone's just given me an idea, and I don't want to say it, but someone's just reminded me of a zombie film that I forgot about.
Gotcha.
Like, no.
Well, yeah. I think there's a couple that I definitely was like, do these belong in the list? Like, I enjoyed watching them you know, the times that I watched them, but then comparing them to everything else that I had, because I just started out with like a master list and then started putting together, like I knew what I wanted as number one, all that kind of, like some of them I just knew. And then there's some others where I'm like, ooh, does this deserve a spot? And you know, it's tough when you have to make those decisions, but
very tough.
cutthroat.
There are some zombie films that I considered to go on the list that I hadn't seen for years, and then when I rewatched them, they didn't age very well. So I'm having to cut some of them out. I'm like, nope, I'm sorry, I have
Yep.
to be honest, you know. So
Same here.
It's a
Same
shame.
here, man. We are like the
Dog,
same person. We were just born
I know.
on different continents.
Dog Tanya said Day is getting more appreciation too, so that could be on the list. Day is, I think Day is a very underrated film, and I think it's because it had big boots to fill for like night and dawn. So I can understand why people may consider Day the black sheep of the family for that one, but it's understandable.
And it's a little bleak. It's his bleakest movie, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think that's another reason why people are like, well, where's the fun that Dawn had? But Night of the Living Dead's pretty bleak too.
That is very bleak, yeah, absolutely. Dog Tanya says Shaun of the Dead as well. It's a comedy, but it's still a zombie film. Frank Riker says, got to have Dead Alive on the list. Was Dead Alive Peter Jackson?
Yeah. It's his second film, I think, or at least because I think he did Bad Taste and then followed it up with Dead Alive, or Brain Dead, as everyone else calls it. That's not in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, because Brain Dead over here, because I think Bad Taste was 87, and I think Brain Dead was 92 or something. I believe. Well, here we go. Nick Push Horror Channel says Halloween 2007 is a zombie film, right? Well, technically, you could say so. Rob is zombie. And Dog Tanyan said Return of the Living Dead trilogy, especially number 3. Do you know, again, that's another film that is kind of bogged down by the quality of the first film. People just forget about certain films in a franchise because of how great a first one was. Return of the Living Dead 3 was pretty good as well. And it had, what's her name again? From the OC. Oh, I can't even remember her name.
Is it Misha Barton?
Misha Barton's mum.
Oh, her mom. Oh, gotcha. I can't remember that actress's name.
Nah, but
I think I might have seen Return of the Living Dead 3 like on television years ago. I don't know if I've ever like sat down and watched like an actual, you know, the real cut of the film. I've seen the first 2, but I don't think I've seen that one. That one's the one that's got like kind of the punk rocker looking zombie chick on the cover. Okay.
I think it was directed by Brian Usna, who directed Bride of Chucky.
Oh, okay. I really like Bride of Chucky.
And I think he directed one of the Bride of Frankenstein movies as well. Yeah, Beyond Reanimator. Oh, wait a minute. He directed... I don't want to get too bogged down. He directed Society, Reanimator 2, Return of the Living Dead 3, Necronomicon, The Dentist. So he's got quite the catalogue.
Yeah.
But well, yeah, we're kind of caught up with the chat just now anyway. So will we start getting into our top 10s, Davey?
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, I do want to say to Gene, because Gene says I'm not really into zombie movies. The only movie I've seen is the OG Night of the Living Dead. And did you not like it, Gene? Is that why you didn't dive in anymore? Because I think that, you know, as a fan of horror films, there are definitely going to be some movies on both of these lists that are worth your time at least checking out. Because I think what's really cool about the zombie genre in general is other, you know, a subgenre like slashers is really fun and everything, like a roller coaster. Cool thing about zombie films, they can be straight entertainment, of course, but also sometimes they can like say a little bit more, kind of comment on how we are and how we treat each other as a society and as human beings. So I think that's like another wrinkle that the zombie subgenre has that a lot of horror doesn't necessarily have. So, and again, you can still just watch them as a fun movie, or you can look for that insight. So I think it's cool that they can work on that other level, which is a big reason why I'm a huge fan of the subgenre.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with everything you said there. Before we start, we've got another one. Vanderhoff's in the house. Vanderhoff said Zombieland as well. Again, another comedy, but as a zombie film as well.
Yeah.
We've got Sully's here. Sully Streams. Popping in to say, I saw 1985's The Return of the Living Dead a couple of weeks ago for the first time at a midnight screening and absolutely loved it. Perfect tone for a zombie flick. It is a great zombie film. You might see it on one of our lists. You might not. You never know. So what we'll do, Davey, is we won't do the typical you, me, you, me, you. What we might do, we'll maybe do like you, me, then me, you, then you, me.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's cool.
Yes. We'll
like a
always
draft.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit of a draft. Okay.
Yeah, so don't want to keep it going back and forward.
Okay.
But it also depends what we choose as well, because maybe your number 8 will be the same as my number 8, and we're having the same conversation twice in a row. So
we'll see.
how it goes.
I'm interested. Yeah, I'm anxious. I'm chomping at the bit, Barry. I want to know what's different here.
Exactly. Right. So who should go first?
Your channel, your call. If you want to go first or you want to throw it back to me, whatever's clever for you.
We'll ask a chat. Chat, for the first name that comes up is the first person to start. Davey or Barry? Or Wolfman. You can say Wolfman if you want.
I've probably said Wolfman in a comment just because I've probably said Barry as well, but I just got to shake it up, There we go. Dogtanian calls it.
There you go. Thank you very much for that, Dogtanian. The pressure is on. Now, before we begin, and I'm sure David knows this as well, this is our opinion. Please don't be offended. Please don't be upset. And I'm not saying that this top 10 that I'm giving you is the official top 10. I'm not saying that my opinion matters more than anyone else. It's just my opinion. And some people might be more enthusiastic about the zombies subgenre than me. So apologies if you're offended by any of these choices. I'm really sorry.
Oh, yeah. I think we got some great people. You guys aren't going to be offended in the chat, right? You guys are all with it.
I don't mind if you are. I don't care.
My address is 10141. No, I'm just joking.
123 High Street.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So my number 10, I did have like an overlay, but I'm not going to show it because Dave doesn't have one. And I feel like it's unfair if you guys see mine and not Dave's physically. But after this video is done, I'm going to be editing our top 10 into a more condensed video that will have some video footage for them all anyway. So if you are interested in what any of them sound like, then at least you'll see some video footage as well that might make you go, oh, that looks pretty good. I'll check it out. Anyway, without further ado, my number 10 is 1985's The Return of the Living Dead. Yes, The Return of the Living Dead, 1985. I can see your face already, Dave, thinking, that's quite low. But yeah, every film in this list I absolutely adore, and some of them could go up and down depending on how I'm feeling. But at this moment in time, The Return of the Living Dead from 1985, it is 1985, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
It's a fantastic zombie film. Now, I didn't see this film until after I watched The Return of the Living Dead Part 2. So
okay.
This was the second one in the franchise that I actually watched. So I was expecting it to be funnier because Part 2 is more of a parody of Part 1, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting the tone that I got when I watched it. And I remember at first I thought, that's not really funny in that film. I don't like it. And I left it for years. And then I watched it again as I started getting right into the horror films again. And it's got that really nostalgic mid-80s horror vibe that I absolutely love. It kind of feels like a movie version of Michael Jackson's Thriller. Not Thriller itself, but just the look and the feel of the film, the way it was shot and stuff. It did look like a Joe Dante movie. But yeah, the characters in it were fantastic. I love the look of some of the zombies, like the what do you call them? The barrel zombie. What's his name?
The tar zombie.
The tar zombie. So a lot of unique aspects to it. And before Return of the Living Dead came out, it was mostly really serious zombie films, apart from Dawn of the Dead. Like Romero's was kind of schlocky at times, but you were expecting more serious films in the zombie subgenre, but that kind of made it more lighthearted. It was still quite scary at times, especially if you watched it as a kid. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I rewatched it again a few months ago. Didn't watch it for this video, but I remembered it freshly anyway. And I still had a lot of fun with it after 30 years or so. So yeah, it has to make the list. It's just not anywhere near the top. But for me, it's a really fantastic film. I don't want to really ask you if you've seen it, because maybe it'll be on your list. I don't know. But It's up to you if you want to say if you've seen it or not.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. My number 10 is Return of the Living Dead from 1985.
Oh, is that right?
That's my number 10 as well.
That's
And
why your
like,
face was
I do really enjoy this film, and I sort of was like, well, I didn't know if it was going to be 9 or 10. I think what it is for me is, you know, maybe the comedy aspect of it is sort of what brought it not a little down further in the list, but like when I just compare it to all the others, I think I enjoy a little bit more of some of the other serious tone a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, certainly I have a great time with this film. I love Tom Matthews as a performer. I really love Clu Gulager. When he comes in with that members only jacket and he's just like telling them that they're a bunch of morons and like, what the hell are you doing? And he just takes charge, even though this is a situation that's beyond control at that point. Like, I really love his performance there. I love the punk rock aspect. I'm a big punk rock fan. So of course that Linnea Quigley's dance is worth the price of admission alone. And it's just, other than that, I mean, it's still just a really fun, like rock and roll kind of movie that's relatively easy to watch. It does have ties to the original Night of the Living Dead because Joe Russo, the guy who co-wrote the original Night of the Living Dead, wrote this film. That's why it's they can use the term Living Dead, is because he has ownership of that. As I think he even had it over, George lost it, and that's why George's films just became Dead instead of Living Dead.
Oh,
and so that's a nice little tie-in to, you know, to where it all started. They kind of hint at the events from Night of the Living Dead in Return of the Living Dead, but they don't use any of that. They don't call it out exactly. But there's a little hint in there. And you're absolutely right about the comparisons to Thriller, because there's even just the whole like graveyard scene when all the zombies are coming up out of the ground is very reminiscent of the scene where, like, you know, there's the musical break during the Thriller video and Vincent Price like has that monologue. Very reminiscent of that. And who doesn't love slide tackling zombies in the mud? I mean, it's really, really fun stuff for sure.
Yeah. How did you pronounce his name again? Clu Gulager?
Clu Gulager, I guess, is how I've always said it. Gulager. I don't know. He's in an episode. I'm a huge Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan, as you guys can tell from that poster up there. He's in one of my favorite episodes that's about San Francisco International Airport. He plays like the airport cop. And even though those movies are usually pretty bad, like there's something about Clu that I really like. I just find him charming as a performer.
Yeah, he was fantastic in that film. I can't remember who it was. It may have been Frank Riker that said that. I think someone pronounced his name Klugaluga.
It's one word. Klugaluga.
Klugaluga.
Klugaluga. Caligula, right? Is it Caligula? That would be wild if Clu Gulager was in Caligula. It would be like, how can you even say that, you know?
Well, Dr. Loomis was in it. Fight the Good Fight says Return of the Living Dead is my number one.
All right.
One of my favorite horror films ever. And I totally get that. I've seen a lot of people say, not just for zombies, but horror in general. A lot of people have said that Return of the Living Dead is their favorite horror film, and rightfully so, because it is fantastic. The soundtrack's amazing. They've also said that as well. The soundtrack is
punk
great.
Rock, yeah,
and I quite like that kind of punk rock on it. Now, I don't consider Night of the Demons. Hopefully, I don't know if you have it on the list, but I don't consider Night of the Demons a zombie film. It's more like a demon film.
Demonic possession, absolutely, yeah.
And it felt like that as well. Obviously, it had Linnea Quigley in it as well. And there's a dance scene with Angela and stuff. And it had the same kind of punk rock feel to it.
Yes,
as
absolutely.
Each other. You know, it felt like it was directed by the same people. Obviously, it wasn't. But yeah, I totally get that kind of vibe, the kind of heavy metal, punk rock, late 80s, mid 80s feel to it. It was great. So
yeah, it's got a nice dirty feel. And I totally get why people, you know, would rank it higher. And I mean, I celebrate it as well. I have the Blu-ray. I really love this movie, but you know, when it came down to picking spots, you know, you just have to pick some spots. So, and a great 4th of July film for the American folk, because I think it starts on the 3rd of July is the day that it starts.
All right. Well, since we both chose that film as our number 10, let me just do this.
Yeah. Ta-da. There it is. Yeah.
Return of the Living Dead, just in case someone wants to see what it looked like there. So
it's great. Look at that. You know exactly what you're getting when you rent a movie that looks like that, right?
Classic mid-80s horror poster for sure.
Absolutely.
So the number 9. What we'll do? Do you know what we'll do? Just for a bit of fun, we'll ask the chat to tell us who's going first for number 9. Maybe we'll do that all the time.
Yeah.
Until they stop answering.
And if they say Barry this time, it's just going to be Barry forever.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Doug Tanyan said, "Could Planet Terror be on here?" Planet Terror. Well, I think there's zombies in it anyway. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of a bio zombie.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I guess you never know.
Doc Tanyan, sorry guys, Night of the Demons 2 is what does he say? The best Porky's with demons. Yeah, I covered that with my buddy Foz on a show on my channel called Movie Punks. We just talked about that. It was our first episode, and I likened it to Porky's and Police Academy because it's one of the horniest movies I've ever seen in my life.
That's true. Gene said, Davey, you say Gulager. Oh my god, I can't say it.
Gulager. Yeah. Oh, he's great.
That's too hard for me. Right. No one said Barry or Davey, so
just go. Just do it.
I'll do it. I'm going first. I don't care. So number 9 for me is George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. That's my number 9. You're smiling as if that's your number 9, but we'll find.
It's not. It's okay. I know you're trying to read my smiles, and I'm trying not to. I'm trying to keep a poker face.
I know. I need to try not look. So yeah, Day of the Dead for me. It is. Well, I was going to spoil something there, but I'm not going to say. But yeah, Day of the Dead again, fantastic film, and like you said, I don't know if you said it off air or just at the start there. Oh yeah, you said it at the start, where it is more bleak than the likes of Night and Dawn. There's a lot more at stake, I feel, with Day of the Dead. It feels a lot more claustrophobic as well. You know, a lot of it takes place down in the bunker and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot more of a claustrophobic style George A. Romero zombie movie than the previous two. There's one thing in it that I thought maybe they took a little bit too far, and that is his name Bub? Bub, yeah. With Bub being able to learn, I know they have to kind of evolve the zombie films because it's the third one that he's done. But with him being able to evolve and use a gun and stuff like that, I thought it wasn't for me. I don't really see any positives in the advancements of the zombies, because when I watch a zombie film, I want to know that I'm able to get away from the zombie. But at the same time, I also want to know that I can be trapped by these zombies as well without them outsmarting me. I'd rather be the smart one and still die in a zombie film and know that it's my own fault. But yeah, I think the characters were great in it. There was characters in it that I absolutely hated as well, but I loved to hate them as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great all-round film, but I did have a few issues with it. But one thing, the funny thing is, I have more issues with this film than I do Return of the Living Dead. But there's something about this one that was more professionally made, more at stake, and the zombies looked a little bit better as well. And because it's George A. Romero, I respect it a little bit more. I know that maybe that's not a good excuse, but I do. So yeah, number 9, Day of the Dead.
Savini's effects, I think, alone.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention.
I think it's his best work for any of his films that he's ever done, and he's not done bad effects on any film. You know, I mean, you look at everything he's done from The Prowler to Friday the 13th Final Chapter, and you know, the George movies, and I think this one is the crown jewel in the Savini crown for sure.
Yeah. It's
maybe we'll talk about Day of the Dead a little later on. Maybe we will. I guess I could just reserve my comments, and if it doesn't make it on the list, then I can just go on a diatribe at the end of the screen here.
But yeah, Doug Tanyan said, and this is absolutely true. For me, this is a difficult one to place, and it is one that my list, my number 10 could easily be number 7 next week. You know, so it's close.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
With full disclosure, like I wanted to make sure that I was going into this the right way, so I took a look. You know, I carved out time today just to take another look at the list and make sure that there wasn't anything that I had just any sort of trepidation about if I wanted to move anything around. Yeah. So So yeah, I think with all these movies, it's kind of tough. I enjoy all of them. I mean, that's the thing about top 10 is it's not just because Return of the Living Dead is number 10 doesn't mean I think it's bad. It's like,
Exactly.
no, I just like these other 9 movies a little bit more for various reasons. And speaking of which, my number 9 is Train to Busan. That's my number 9. I recently saw this film for the very first time and enjoyed so much about it. The things that I didn't enjoy too much didn't really pull me out of it, while I was watching. And I liked that they essentially go with a George Romero style kind of rules, but they also make up some of their own rules that work within that frame. So they don't really go like too far outside of what George did. And I love that. I love to be able to see like the respect for everything that George set up, and then also the creativity to see like, well, what else can we do within those confines? And I really love that. I love how the characters have real arcs to them, the way that they get to know each other, and the way they get to the way they feel about each other changes as the story goes on. And I think there's some good like lessons in there. They definitely hit on the social commentary side of it for sure, without it being too much of a focus or ever really feeling like it's pulling me out. And the putting it all in a train for the most part is just a cool concept. If you just went into a pitch room and said like, it's Night of the Living Dead, but in a train, like you're probably going to get some money to make a movie. And luckily with this movie, I think they did a really damn good job. And, from the very beginning to the very end, they had me invested. I would say my biggest criticism maybe, and this is a criticism I have of a lot of movies, if it were just like 10 minutes shorter, it probably would have climbed a few spots. I think sometimes like, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing, because I noticed this in Godzilla -1. I think I liked it a little bit more. And I, not to lump a group, but I don't know, maybe in Asian culture, or at least Asian cinema, because I know this is a Korean film and Godzilla -1 was Japanese. So not trying to just blend them just because it's Asian. But I do notice there's a real hyper focus on these emotional moments where they really take their time. The camera lingers a little bit. You probably can edit a little bit of that out. The audience sort of gets it, or at least I did. So if this movie were 10 minutes shorter, it probably would have climbed up the list. But a really great first watch, and a zombie film that I'll definitely go back to.
Yeah, absolutely. I have seen that one as well, and it's a good film. But yeah, I agree that there's certain bits in the film where I felt like they could have shaved a few minutes off, but it was quite emotional. I don't want to spoil it because it's not a new film, but it's probably one of the newer films on our lists. But there's a scene near the end of the film involving a certain couple of people that, I had a tear in my eye. I thought, oh, that's quite emotional. And it's emotional for a zombie film. You wouldn't think zombie films would be like that. But yeah, like I said, Asian cinema. I've not seen Godzilla -1 yet. I'm going to be seeing that in a couple of weeks. I do know that there's going to be emotional scenes in that film as well. So I think Asian cinema, they really focus. They've got this hyper focus on the human characters and the human characteristics, and they definitely do that in droves and Train to Busan. So yeah, it's definitely a worthy place on your list for sure.
And we got Chris Snyder in the chat. What's happening, Chris? If you guys don't know Chris, he's over there at Movie Misfits.
Hello, Chris.
He does some great content over there. So just wanted to say what's up to my guy.
What's up, Chris? Dog Tanyan said, this is for Train to Busan. Wow, never heard of this one. It's now on my bucket list. So there you go. Some recommendations already coming in then from everyone. We've got Sally, who says, there's a pretty good Japanese zombie film called Junk, where the zombies in that are definitely an homage to Lucio Fulci's style of zombies and zombie flesh eaters. Have you heard of that? I've not heard of that.
I have not heard of Junk. I'm like, should you have asked Sally to do the top 10 with you? Because she's got these they're coming in. I haven't even, because the first one was The Dead. Is that what the one was called from Africa?
Was that Sally as well? So yeah.
I think it might have been. Forgive me if I'm wrong, Sally, but I think that might have been you as well that recommended that. So yeah, I'll have to check this out. The Fulci movies are definitely like their own kind of flavor for sure.
Well, Sally's definitely given us the international top 10 anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
which is
Yeah.
always good. Vanderhoff said, Dawn of the Dead remake is better than the original, in my opinion. And that's not an unpopular opinion anymore, according to me. So you never know. My opinion always changes. And we've got Dream Villain as well in the house. Dream Villain says, hey, Barry, Davey, how are you both doing? I'm doing well. And I think
Doing
Dave
great,
is.
man. Having a hell of an awesome weekend. 2024 has been so enjoyable. So really happy to be on here. With one of my favorite YouTubers, a guy I've been watching for such a long time. So I am on cloud 9, Dream Villain. How about yourself?
I'm sure he's good. Aston Villa. He supports Aston Villa, which is a soccer team, a soccer team. Soccer.
I love the soccer.
Soccer, dude.
I love that.
Yeah. So his team went through to the semi-final of the Europa Conference League. So it's like an elite European competition. And they
Nice.
went through to the semi-final, or you guys would say the semi-final. And semi-final. So there you go. Dog Tanyan says, I'm sure I've heard you say you like Land of the Dead, Barry. Could this be on the list? You never know. Possibly. You never know. So that was our. Do you know what I forgot to do, Davey? We might do that at the end if we've got time. And if you have any ones that just missed,
mention?
yeah, some honorable mentions that maybe just missed. So
we can hit that at the end for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely got 2 that just missed out on the list.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So number 8. I'll go into number 8. This might be unpopular for some people, so again, I apologize if you don't like this film, but
you gotta stop. It's your channel, man. You gotta own that.
I still need to be nice about it, but so apologies in advance, guys. Number 8 for me is Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Yes, the one that I know people hate, and I know that possibly Darren and Frank from the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast absolutely hate this movie as well.
Frank's out of here.
Yeah, he's away. So I can, again, I completely understand why people don't like this movie, but it's the nostalgic pull that I have for this one. This is one of the very first zombie films that I ever saw as a kid. It was one of the first horror films that I saw in the video store that I thought I need to rent that. See that front cover? It's like, it reminds me of like Fright Night or People Under the Stairs. And it captivated me as a kid. And for years, I would say to my mom and dad, please, can we rent this movie? And they'd be like, nah. Until eventually they did. They rented it, and I absolutely loved it. I know it's got some cheesy moments in it with like Michael Jackson Thriller. It's so corny. It's so cheap and nasty. And it's completely far away from what the original was like, Return of the Living Dead. But the original Return of the Living Dead did have comedy in it. This just kind of amps it up a little bit. It had returning characters as well, with Kluga Luga and Tom Matthews as well, who were fantastic in this. I preferred them in this one way more than I did in the original one. I think the only issue that I had with it is the characters weren't as strong and defined as they were in the first film, but the look, the aesthetic, everything about this film is great. I love the fog machine, clearly fog machines going around the graveyard when everybody's coming up from the dead. I love the idea of an isolated cul-de-sac, like the burps, like they've got like a little cul-de-sac where they're living alone. And this was a place, if memory serves me right, the cul-de-sac that they lived in was still being built, so not a lot of people lived there. So I felt that sense of isolation. Also, I don't want to go on too much, but the little kids in the film, they went to the graveyard and they were jumping about the streams and stuff. That reminded me of me as a kid, because I used to do that stuff when I was watching that movie. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. I'm going on this adventure to find zombies. So I've just got so much great memories of this film. It's not the best made movie, but to me, it has to make the list because the nostalgia is just so strong. I can't knock it. So apologies. I know people hate it. So,
if you apologize one more time, no, I'm just
I'm sorry for apologizing.
The atmosphere and everything, like you say, and the artwork. I think that's a big thing. You know, it's a shame that like video stores aren't really around. You know, there are some great like mom and pop video stores, and they cater to people that truly do love film. So that's awesome. But I mean, it used to be where even in my tiny 30,000 person town, there were like 3 or 4 video stores, you know? So even in this small town, and we had a Blockbuster and all that. So, you know, as a kid, I would walk through the horror aisle. I was always fascinated since a young age. And there are certain movies, yeah, like you're saying, like Return of the Living Dead 2, where you see that cover and you're just like, oh, what's that about? Or I remember seeing like the Dolls cover and just being like, that's so freaky, you know, just a few of these that really stood out. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think, yeah, it's your list. And if you love it, then it belongs on the list. Absolutely.
And with the movie poster on the cover, that's all we could go by when we were younger. And you'll remember this as well, David. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have movie trailers at the tip of our fingers. So the only thing we could go by was the synopsis on the back and how good the poster looked, and that was it. And if a movie poster captured your eye, then it's done its job. And you take it home and you watch it. And it doesn't matter if it's bad or not, because when you're young, you just want to watch a horror film. And that was just one of them that I just adored so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Hell yeah, man. Well, my number 8 is Zombieland. This one is really fun. And again, maybe some of the more comedic ones, you know, or maybe because it is a little more comedic, it's not higher on my list. But I really love the structure, the narrative structure of this film. I love like all the rules popping up, all that kind of fun stuff. It's got a comic booky kind of feel, like a graphic novel kind of feel. Really love the characters. Jesse Eisenberg is one of those guys that doesn't always like really do it for me. But I think that since this is an ensemble cast, I think he does a really good job at just kind of being like an unassuming, like regular dude. I think like he's the character where most of us are just supposed to be like, oh yeah, that could be me. Then you've got, you know, of course, Woody Harrelson is just really awesome in this one. I think he puts in one of his best like genre performances, because he's not really, I mean, he's done like pulpy kind of movies and stuff, but like doing something like this to me seemed a little different for him, for sure. You know, of course, Emma Stone, I don't really need to say much about her. She's really great at what she does, pretty much whatever movie she's in. And is it Abigail Breslin? That's the little girl, right?
Abigail Breslin.
Sometimes her and Chloe Grace Moretz, they're about the same age, and like I got old guy confused, you know.
She's a year older, I think.
Really great cast, really fun movie that's easy to watch, very digestible. I think a movie that's very rewatchable. You know, even though there may be some like heavier movies here higher on the list, there is something about this where it's nice, where you can just kind of put it on and have a good time, and it still provides like the gore and the fun that you're looking for. I love that Woody Harrelson line about not liking the Hostess snowballs, and he's like, it's not about the flavor, it's about the texture, or something like that. Because I feel the same way about coconut, or at least when I was a kid, I did. Bill Murray cameo, really fun, and of course the giant set piece at the end, culminating at the theme park. Was really, really fun. So I think Zombieland is one of those modern zombie movies that just knows how to have a really good time with it, and captures a nice balance between the horror and the comedy for me.
Yeah, I think it was a really good film. I think it was very stylistically edited as well. See the beginning when Jesse Eisenberg's given the rules of just surviving a zombie film. You see like the text coming up when he's running past the zombies and the cars and stuff. Really well edited. So yeah, it's a really good film. And I think, like you said, Woody Harrelson, he absolutely stole the show. He was he steals the show in every film. But I think this is his first horror film, as far as I'm aware. I don't even know other horror films he's been in. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely worthy of being on anyone's top 10 list. Let's see what the chat are saying, because we've got a few coming in. Vanderhoff says, I think Land of the Dead is great. Dog Tanya remembers the poster for Return of the Living Dead Part 2. I think everyone remembers the poster for it, even if they haven't seen the movie, because it is memorable. Gene says, don't worry, Barry, about it. It's your list. I don't really worry. I just try to be nice, but deep down inside, I'm like, I don't care.
And I think you're really nice about it, and I get it that, you know, you do kind of have to, for some reason, you have to give a disclaimer before giving your opinion, which to me, it just seems kind of built in. Like when people are like, well, that's just your opinion. And I'm like, yeah, you're exactly right. It is just my opinion. At no place did I ever say that this was absolute fact.
Exactly.
Passed
Yeah.
down from the heavens. You know?
have to say, yeah. I'm not going to start a sentence every time and say, well, in my opinion, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah. It's like we're talking about art.
yeah.
Of course, it's an opinion.
So just to let everybody know here, see when I say I apologize, I'm not apologizing to you guys because I know that you guys know me and we're all friends. But I mean, this video is going to be out on YouTube in a couple of months' time. Some Joe Smith is going to be watching this thinking,
Yeah.
who does this guy think he is? You know, so I'm
Mhm.
having to say it for the people who are watching after the fact who just don't know me personally. So no offense to anyone here. I know you guys all accept my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. But for anyone else watching out with this live stream, you never know. So
The people that watch 30 seconds of your video and they're like jumping in the comments, like, Barry, you didn't even talk about blah, blah, blah.
know,
I can't believe you feel that way about Scream 6.
yeah,
I got 15 seconds in.
I know. As soon as I say but, they're like, oh, what do you mean but? And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, calm down. You like this one? Dog Tanyan says Evil Dead cover 2. Yeah, the Evil Dead cover is very iconic. It's behind you right now. It's funny you should mention that. Well, I've nothing to show, but I'll show you anyway. This here is blank, but at work I've got a professional printer at work that I've already edited an Evil Dead picture that's going to
killer.
be going into this. So that's going to go in there shortly.
Like your own piece that you put together?
It's another person's artwork. It is
Okay.
because it's someone else's artwork. I've kept their name on it because I'm obviously not going to be
sweet.
deleting that. So I've the only thing I've edited is the size of it. I've had to add certain textures around it to make it fit perfectly.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it'll be in that.
Cool.
So
Hell yeah.
and it's a great poster. So not that one, it's a different one. I'll show you when I've got it.
Hell yeah.
So you went there. Yeah, you just went there. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right. So it's my number 7 now. We're on 7 already. Okay. So this is my number 7 is one that is the one on the list that feels the least zombie film, but I still class it as a zombie film. And that is Night of the Creeps from 1986. So it's Fred Decker's Night of the Creeps. For anyone who's saw my channel, obviously it's Wolfman's Got Nards, which is one of my favorite horror films, is The Monster Squad, directed by Fred Decker. And just a year before that, he directed Night of the Creeps. And I just feel like Night of the Creeps has a very similar vibe and feel to it as The Monster Squad did, but this time, instead of the Universal Monsters, it is these zombies at high school or a frat party or whatever. And obviously the great I forgot his name, the great Tom Atkins. Yeah, I'm like the great, what's his name again? So yeah,
I like to call him Tom the Stash Atkins.
Yeah, Tom the Stash. So the Stash is in it as well, and he literally just plays Chalice from Halloween 3 in it anyway. But yeah, he's fantastic. A lot of great one-liners in it. A lot of great one-liners in the Monster Squad as well, of course. So I just feel like Fred Decker at the time, he was going places, and he was in his late 20s as well when he directed this. So he still had a lot going for him at the time. Showed his really great director. In fact, it was his directorial debut as well. So everything was going right for him until RoboCop 3. But yeah, this one, just like most of the films on the list, it's got some great atmosphere to it. It's very nostalgic for me as well, watching this movie in the late 80s. In fact, I probably watched this in the early 90s or something, because in the UK, we didn't get every title like you guys did in the US, especially if it's not a UK movie. So I had to wait a few years until it came out. But again, the front cover caught my eye. I managed to rent it at the video store and absolutely loved it. What's his name? Do you know there's a guy in it, the main character? I'll tell you.
We're trying to, like, the redheaded guy.
He's famous.
I'm trying to remember here. You know what's funny is I've never seen this film.
What's Ryan Reynolds' wife's name?
Blake Lively.
It's Jason
Lively.
Jason Lively. It's his. I think it's his little sister.
Gotcha. Wow, that's crazy.
Because
And
there's a
I think I recognize him from a couple other 80s movies, if I remember
yeah, I think he's in
correctly.
National Lampoon's
Oh
Vacation.
yeah, European Vacation. He plays Rusty. That's where I know him from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's again. There's quite a few charismatic people in the film. They all play their part. I wouldn't say too much about it because I think. Have you seen the Monster Squad?
Oh my God, I love the Monster Squad. For me, I'm
Yeah,
a Monster Squad over Goonies kind of guy. I mean, I love
yeah,
the Goonies, but I think the Monster Squad is just way more up my alley. As a
right,
kid, I watched it, like would rent it every year, you know.
right. I'm not going to say too much about it then because if you like the Monster Squad, I feel like you're going to love Night of the Creeps as well. Some people like Night of the Creeps over Monster Squad.
Gotcha. And
So
I don't have a good reason for not watching it. I was trying to find a way to watch it before putting together this list, but you know, every now and then it's just for another time. And you
mhm.
know,
There's probably some on your list that I've not seen as well. So far, I've seen them all, but I'm sure there's definitely going to be one or two on your list that I've not seen. But maybe add it to your watch list then at some point because I think you might like it. Even if you're
yeah.
watching it for the first time today, you'll find it dated. There's parts in it you're like, oh, that's cringy, but I think you'll appreciate it for its time.
I think, you know, not to toot my own horn as an audience member, but I try to do my best to sort of put myself in that time that the film was made.
Same.
So like if I watch something like Citizen Kane, I'm not like thinking about it as it comparing it to a Christopher Nolan movie or something like that. I'm like, well, I'm thinking about the achievement that it was in its time. So yeah, and going back to that era, I mean, that was the era that I grew up and like, you know, fell in love with movies. So yeah, certainly you got to check it out for sure.
Yeah. One thing I will mention as well is before we went live, it was a couple of days ago, I was saying to the guys on Facebook, come and check our video out. And some guy said, and I know him, I don't know him personally, but he's like comments now and again, and he said, there's no point in watching this because all you're going to do
Mhm.
is tell us new
New
zombie
movies.
films. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think I know any new zombie horror films,
Yeah.
which is
I'm like,
bizarre.
well, and I'm thinking, well, dude, I guess if you're like almost 60 or something, then maybe like if movies from the 80s are like still considered new to you, then maybe. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
what I was thinking is I was like, if that's, you know how like for our age, we could be like, oh yeah, the 90s wasn't long ago. And you're like,
Yeah.
dude, it was like over a quarter of a century ago, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That's the way I think he's thinking as well. He's maybe thinking,
Yeah,
he's probably thinking Return of the Living Dead is considered still modern, and it's
sure.
not modern at all, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. And right there with you. I think the newest one is, or at least for me, I think is Train to Busan. I mean, and
Mhm.
what, that's like 2016 or something. I
Yeah.
don't even know.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's 8 years ago. So
yeah.
if that's new, then fair enough. So, yeah. So that was my number 7. So I wouldn't say too much more about it because I think you'll get a kick out of it if you watch it.
Yeah, I gotta check it out. I love Atkins and I love everything Fred Decker does in Monster Squad. So if it's got a similar vibe, I'm right there.
Mhm.
And yeah, what's we got? I was like, Emilio,
Oh, he's
the
back
mighty
again.
duck guy. I swear to God.
He tipped his hat like this. Carrot Top, 1-800 call collect. There we
Is that,
go.
are you calling Jason Lively Carrot Top?
Does it look like him?
Because is he kind of a redhead, or at least he was in that movie, I think. I don't
No,
know. I do miss those 1-800 collect commercials though. Those were kind of nice, right?
I don't get them. Because we don't have that in the UK yet.
They're like back in the 90s. It was like Carrot Top and David Spade and just like, you know, people that couldn't get jobs after a little bit.
All right.
I mean, I love David Spade, don't get me wrong, but he did the
Mhm.
1-800 collect commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see here. I'm clicking along to my number 7, right? We're on number 7.
Yep. Number 7.
At number 7, I have Land of the Dead.
Oh, someone mentioned that it was going to be on someone's list. There
Yeah.
you go.
And I really, really love this movie. And when I first saw it, so I saw it premiere weekend in Hollywood at the Cinerama. And I swear it's funny that I was like Emilio was in the chat now because I went with my older brother Matt. A lot of my movie watching experiences are with my older brother Matt, who's about 10 years older than me. Shout out to you, Matt, if you're watching. I know you're in Italy right now, so you're a little bit you're an hour ahead of Barry, I think, out there
Oh, ciao,
in
ciao.
Italia. But yeah, this movie, Tony Todd was at that theater
All right.
for that showing.
Nice.
And I swear, because I'm like, we're right here in Hollywood. its opening weekend, it wasn't like an event or anything. It was just a showing of it. But that Cinerama, you know, have you seen that theater, Barry? It's the one that kind of looks like a big golf ball. It's kind of like a famous looking, and the Cinerama has like a cool little, like the way that they put the name. I think the theater is closed now, unfortunately. I think COVID knocked it out.
I'm just going to Google it. Oh yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, I've seen it.
But I saw that, like, I'm like, I nudged my brother. I'm like, I think that's Tony Todd in the lobby. And I'm like, it makes sense. He was in the remake of Night of the Living Dead. Like, it makes sense. And he's in other horror movies. So him coming out and watching one of George's movies, like, this all adds up. Because seriously, when you walk around Hollywood sometimes, like I saw Scarlett Johansson outside of Amoeba Records, like on another visit, like you just see people walking around. It's crazy. Like they're just out and about. I mean, you realize, oh, these people are regular people just like me, and they go record shopping just like I do. But yeah, really great experience in the theater watching that the first time. However, after the first watch, I was like pretty lukewarm about it, honestly. And I watched it a couple more times because I was already in love with Romero at that point. And it just sort of, I think I wanted it to be better than it was on my first viewing. But I'm a rewatcher of movies. The more I watched it, and the more I like talked about it with friends of mine that liked those movies as well. They sort of gave me their thoughts, and then every time I went back, I like kind of looked at it from that perspective, and I just started loving it more and more every single time. I think Simon Baker puts in such a great performance here as Riley Denbo. You know, an Australian guy that does a great American accent. Can't even tell that he is not American. It's amazing. Dennis Hopper is just magnetic and hilarious in this really kind of diabolical way in this film. Asia Argento is great as well. I think she does a really good job. You know, her and Simon have a really good chemistry going. And, you know, I think it was just, George did a great job of extending his zombie lore in this film. And, you know, because it seems like the point he's always trying to make is that, like, we are them, they are us kind of thing, like drawing the parallels, even though there is still a stark contrast there. And I think Land of the Dead is like the ultimate full circle from the original Night of the Living Dead. Like, I feel like it, you know, at the end of well, I don't want to spoil anything. Have you guys all seen Land of the Dead? Let me know in the chat. No, but I just think the way that the movie ends is sort of like, it's a good bookend when you compare it to the way that Night of the Living Dead ends. And every time I watch it, I just love it more. Leguizamo, I love he has a whole bunch of improv in the movie, which I don't think many people did in other Romero films, but I think it's some of Leguizamo's like funniest material that he has in his whole career. So Land of the Dead for me it's a big one. I absolutely love this movie, even though it's ranked number 7. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Don't apologize.
I love this film so much. So yeah.
It's one I will need to revisit. I went to the cinema to see it. I thought it was great when I watched it in the cinema, and I got the DVD, watched the DVD when it came out, and I've not seen it since. So I've probably not seen it for about 18 years, I would imagine. So I'll need to revisit that one because it was one that I enjoyed. I remember watching the trailer for it. I used to go to movielist.com for my trailers, or Apple trailers, when the internet was still kind of young. And I was like, oh, George A. Romero's got a new zombie film coming out. And then I watched the trailer for it. And I remember it had this really rock music in the trailer, like do 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 do. And then I was like, well, this is crazy. So the trailer made me just like, oh, I need to see this. So yeah, I enjoyed it at the time, but I didn't put it on my list, unfortunately, spoiler alert, because I haven't seen it for a long, long time. So I couldn't give it a fair rating. So it's one I will need to revisit again because I did enjoy it, but I can't rate it because I need to be honest. So yeah, I will definitely watch that one again though, because it interests me knowing that I don't remember too much about it other than what I remember from the trailer. So, so yeah, and I'm guessing it's a popular choice because somebody already mentioned that it was going to go in someone's list. So there you go. So we're on to number 6.
You guys are quiet in the chat. Let us know your favorite zombie films. I want to see some action in there.
Let's see. Oh yeah, we've still got people watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, if you want to leave any more comments, guys, let us know. While we're doing that, because we've caught up, I'll go straight into number 6. And my number 6 is George A. Romero's the Night of the Living Dead from 1968. The one that
Right.
basically started it all. The one that's the reason we're doing this video today. If it wasn't for Night of the Living Dead, then we probably wouldn't have this video today. So we've got that to thank for it. And I always look at black and white films, especially when I was younger, going, I can't connect to this film because it's not in color. I just could not connect to any black and white movie when I was a kid. But the 3 black and white films that I could connect with are Psycho, It's a Wonderful Life, and Night of the Living Dead. There's just something about Night of the Living Dead that oddly reminds me of Stephen King's It from 1990, the miniseries. There's just some, obviously that's set in the late 50s, so maybe that's got a reason for it, but it's, even though it's black and white, I can feel the color coming through, especially that scene when Johnny and Barbara are in the cemetery at the start, and he's like, "They're coming to get you, Barbara. Look, there comes one of them now." She's like, "Stop it, Johnny." I just love that scene.
You're ignorant, which doesn't really make sense, but I guess like I'm like, that dialogue doesn't make sense, but whatever.
It's just so good and so ahead of its time. And even watching it now, I still get a wee sense of like, oh, you go get away because there's someone in the background coming towards you.
Yeah.
So it's way ahead of its time, especially, you know, that's something I appreciate with George A. Romero, even at the time, as well as he was giving black actors a chance. And not only was he giving black actors a chance, he was making them the main characters. Look at Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead. The main characters were black males, and that was unheard of at the time. And even when black males were in these films, they were the first to die. Whereas in this one, these guys were the heroes, or they were lasted a long time, you know. So very advanced. He told a political message in his stories without hitting you over the head with it as well, especially in films like Night and Dawn. So I think Night of the Living Dead was so ahead of its time, and I think it was appreciated because of that. It wasn't just a zombie film, even though it wasn't considered a zombie film, because I
think they call them ghouls in the movie.
Ghouls?
And I think that's what they called them in the script. Yeah, I don't think he ever used the term zombies like in the script other than like stage direction. So yeah, it was like before that. I think before that it was like white zombies. So it was the, you know, like the voodoo zombies that's how that term was used beforehand. So it was more of a religious kind of black magic thing. And then I think Night is where that term sort of kicked off as being, no, this is somebody that's died and come back from the dead.
Yeah, so it's just
they're eating flesh,
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had a big impact, and I think because it was a horror film, I would always give it a chance because black and white didn't connect with, but because it's horror, I gave it a chance. So I think if I didn't watch it over and over again as a kid, I probably wouldn't really appreciate it now. But I can watch that anytime. And the good thing is it's free. It's like literally public domain. So anyone can watch that film. So yeah, fantastic.
Unfortunately
movie
for George and his career,
exactly,
it was public domain, unfortunately.
So yeah, that's my number 6.
That's a great number 6. Definitely worthy of being on the list, but it's not on mine. Just joking.
Spoiler.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that movie. I'll save my thoughts for if it happens to pop up on my list here.
Hit me.
My number 6 is Dawn of the Dead 2004. Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead from 2004. I think this movie kicks ass. I think this movie is so much damn fun. I think this is the tallest order of a remake that I had ever seen, especially at that time, maybe one of the tallest orders from a remake ever. Because when I first heard about this being remade, I was following this website called darkhorizons.com a whole heck of a lot back then. And everything I read was like, oh no, this is going to be an absolute nightmare. Like at first it was going to be PG-13. And then when they decided to make it R, there was talks about a zombie baby. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? What are they doing to my guy, George? And then I sat my butt down. You know, the trailer looked good. I was like, okay, it looks like they're kind of going with what he did and switching up some things. and sat my butt down in the theater. I was like 21 years old, or right, about to turn 20. Oh yeah, about to turn 21. Or no, yeah, I was 21. I don't even know why I'm talking about my age. Skip that.
You were
Cut that out. No.
You're going to be 22 in May, though.
I was in my early 20s, and I loved it so much in the theater that I went back the very next day and watched it again. And I think what Zack Snyder did here by making the cast larger. Also, James Gunn wrote the script, which I think is something to, it's something of note, especially now with James being in the position he's in now. It's really cool to see that he started out writing terrible movies like Romeo and Juliet, and then, graduated to like, Scooby-Doo, Dawn of the Dead, and now he's in charge of the entirety of DC. It's kind of wild. And you can see why he is picked for that job, because you've got this movie that's got like 15 or so leads. It's a real big ensemble cast, so they're able to knock people off but still get to spend some time getting to know people. There is the classic struggle, human versus human struggle that George always has in his movies. So I love that they kept some of those tenets of Romero's film, but definitely upgraded it with the fast zombies. And just it just felt modern. So I felt like Zack Snyder did a great job. He's a super stylistic director, and I think he did a really good job at respecting what George did, kind of making it his own. And I was so wrong about my feelings about Dawn of the Dead in 2004 before it came out, because once I saw it, I fell in love, and it was an absolute riot in the theater. People were just cheering, and it was crazy. So yeah, Dawn of the Dead 2004, number 6 for me.
Nice one. Yeah, it's a great choice. I have to agree. We've got some comments in the chat.
Yeah.
People are back. We've got Resident Dr. Evil said the original Night of the Living Dead is my favorite zombie film. Everything it inspired from essentially every other zombie movie after to Resident Evil makes it special. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well said.
Started the whole chain of other zombie films. Fight the Good Fight says, busy at work, just working now. Yeah, again, I don't mind if people don't comment. If you're watching during your lunch break or whatever, it's absolutely fine. Tony Tucker said, thanks for the semi shout out, Barry. Haha. I like your list so far. I admit I was wrong. I thought it was going to be all modern stuff like Train to Busan, etc. Nice to see love for Return to and Creeps. So it's you, Tony, that said it in Facebook then.
Well, welcome in, Tony. Yeah.
Welcome to I didn't even know who it was. I couldn't remember who it was that said it. So I'm glad you're here and you're being proven wrong. I'm just joking. Tony also,
I did have Train to Busan as number 9, so maybe I'm part of the problem.
That's Davey's fault. He's the modern guy.
Blame me. It's
blame you. He also said, glad Land of the Dead is on someone's list too.
Yeah, really good.
There you go. Sally's back with my favourite zombie films are Dawn of the Dead 78 and Zombie Flesh Eaters 1979, Night of the Living Dead remake 1990, Day of the Dead 85, and the one I've mentioned, The Dead 2008.
The Dead. Now, Zombie Flesh Eaters, is that the Fulci movie that's sometimes just called Zombie?
Yeah, it's got like 8 different names.
Or Zombie 2 without an E on zombie. Yeah, okay.
It's so weird. Yeah, it's so many different names that it's got, but that's exactly the one.
All right.
Tony said Zombie Flesh Eaters. And we've got Resident Dr. Evil said, I think the Dawn of the Dead remake is so good because it was written by James Gunn and it's actually a different story from the original. And that's true, because people thought, how can you improve or at least do something different to the original Dawn of the Dead? Because that was so perfect. And I think that they did do something, they've done their own thing. And I think that's why a lot of people appreciate it to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony also said, I think he mentioned this before, Zombie Flesh Eaters, The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, Night OG, Dawn OG, Day OG, City of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead Trilogy, Night of the Creeps, Brain Dead, Shaun of the Dead. I did say to Tony on Facebook that I absolutely hated The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. I only seen it once, but I thought it was so bad.
I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
No, you don't want to watch it. It's terrible. Apologies, Tony. I'm apologizing again. I'm sorry.
Just I'll offend you and then I'll apologize for it. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Again, everyone's got a different taste.
Yeah. If you like it, you like it. I don't think that's what I always say is like, proudly talk about the things you like, and not, it's like another person's opinion doesn't take that away, and as long as we're not attacking each other on a personal level, like that's the only thing that would ever upset me. It's like, well, we can. It's just the way I didn't write the movie. If you don't like the movie, that's cool.
I have terrible taste in films. Terrible taste.
It's just all over the place, right? Because it might have a nostalgic kind of feel for you, and so you grade it on a curve, right? And then it's just so difficult. Like real quick aside, everyone is loving Abigail, and I liked it. I didn't love it. And I'm like, but if you don't love something that everyone else loves, it's almost like people think that you're saying it's shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, I don't think that, but
I gave Abigail a really good review. I said it was really good, really smart, funny, etc. And people were like, "Oh my god, you're so negative." I'm like, "What?"
Because you didn't love it 100%. Because there were a couple things that didn't work for you. How dare you be an audience member that thinks and wants a little more.
You can't please everyone, so
exactly.
It's
gonna do well for sure.
Exactly. So we're going to our top fives now, Davey.
All right, boom.
We're into the business end. So again, apologize to everyone here.
Oh my gosh.
Now, before I say that, I'm someone, and again, when I say I've got terrible taste in films, I recently done my top 25 movies of all time. So it's not just horror. And in that top 25 was Dirty Dancing. So people know that my taste in films is terrible, but it's my opinion. There you go. Anyway, so this has got nothing to do with Dirty Dancing, but my number 5 is World War Z from 2013, the newest movie on my list, which is 11 years old. World War Z, the one thing about World War Z, especially in modern films, that I absolutely appreciate is the fact that we get to see the apocalypse or the zombie outbreak unfold. There's so many films that miss that out completely. So many TV shows that miss that out. The one part that I really want to see, if you look at the Walking Dead TV show, Rick wakes up in a hospital and we miss the whole outbreak. And then The Last of Us came. I didn't play the game, but The Last of Us came out, and I noticed that they were showing you the outbreak, and I'm like that to my wife. Oh, wait a minute, this could be really good. And then it cuts to 30 years later or whatever. I'm like, we don't get to see the full outbreak. So something that's missing from it's probably budget issues as well, but there's something that's missing from zombie films is that outbreak, seeing it spread so fast. And I think because World War Z had a budget of like $170 million or something.
It was massive. You have Brad Pitt in there, so money is not an issue. Like
they were able to splash the cash, and they were able to show us the zombie outbreak. And if you look really hard at the outbreak, you might see me. You never know. They filmed it in Glasgow, so like they filmed it in a place called George Square in Glasgow. They made it look like Philadelphia or something, but it was filmed in Glasgow. So we were all standing behind this barrier so that they could film. And look, so me and my friends were there. It was like we were at college, and see the bit where the lorry smashes into the car, and then all the zombies were flying all over the place. We were standing there like this. So you might see us there. But yeah, so I've got a great memory of seeing World War Z being filmed, because we're from Scotland, so we don't see a lot of that stuff happen here, but they film quite a lot now. They've filmed the Batman, Fast and Furious, where I live. So we get to see a lot more. Superman is being filmed here. So,
oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so much. I think it's because of the tax break in the UK. So they get to save like the Marvels, the MCU film. I think they filmed it in the UK, so they got like $85 million back just for filming here. So it's cheaper. Come to Scotland where life is cheap. So, so World War Z, so fantastic film. That zombie outbreak is just boom, 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 boom. There's not much stop in this film. There's a lot of action all the way through the movie. And I know that, I don't know if you know this, but they completely had to change the ending of the film. Do you know Matthew Fox?
The actor, he was in Lost and all that stuff. Is that Matthew Fox? Okay.
Yeah. So he's in World War. Have you seen World War Z?
I have not.
Oh,
I have
right,
not
okay.
seen World War Z, and I think I'll let you finish your thing, and
Right.
I'll tell you why I didn't go see it
Right.
or
Okay.
haven't
So
seen it yet.
I'm not going to tell you the ending then, because the ending, there was an ending that was filmed and they had to completely change it. And because they completely changed the ending, Matthew Fox looked like an extra in the film, like he was a
Mm,
nobody. And I'm like, when I watched the movie for the first time, I'm like, why is a big actor like Matthew Fox, because he was massive at the time still,
mhm.
like, why is he playing an extra in this film? That doesn't make sense. And then
Yeah,
when I read about it and I saw that they had to redo the ending, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, I can't say too much then, but I think you might get a kick out of this film because it's
Okay.
so fast paced, so like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. I think sometimes like really big actors in movies like this I need suspension of disbelief.
Mhm.
So somebody like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise being in a zombie movie is like sucking me. I'm going to be sucked
Yeah,
right out. Like,
I know what you
and
mean.
then seeing the zombies be almost like ants where they're like creating like bridges and ladders like with their bodies. Like that to me is something where I'm just like, that seems completely against the spirit of zombies that as far as I know. And
Ah,
so
but it happens in Train to Busan.
a little bit they do that in Train to
I
Busan,
know
but
it.
this is like they're literally like it looks like it's 100-foot wall that these zombies are scaling by turning it. They just look like ants to me, and I'm just
Right.
like, well, okay, like and so that's my own little problem that I have with the establishment and studios and all. It's the punk rock in me that sees a $200 million zombie movie, and I'm like, you don't understand zombies. And it's called soccer. No, I
Soccer.
get like I kind of get that way about it. So, but yeah, I need to put all that aside and at least just watch the movie and actually be able to have an educated opinion on it instead of just based on what I saw in the trailer.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
have not seen it yet.
Yeah, I
And I
think
see here, I think Resident Dr. Evil says, I wish we could have gotten a World War Z movie that more closely adapted the book. And yeah, I think because isn't the book more of like an actual like kind of like a diary account from a journalist instead of like a narrative the way that the movie looks like it's sort of let's take this story and tell it like a traditional narrative instead of like more of kind of a documentary or a looking back on kind of thing.
I don't actually know. I've never read the book, and I'm assuming as well that maybe the book had the proper ending that they filmed, but
Probably, yeah.
they couldn't do it. They couldn't show it to audiences because of the subject matter, because it is
Gotcha.
quite edgy. Um,
But you
so
know
yeah,
who wrote the book, right?
who was it?
It's Max Brooks. It's Mel Brooks's son. So he
Is
wrote the
it?
zombie. Yeah, he wrote the zombie survival guide first, which is literally just like a survival guide. It's hilarious. Like, but it takes like the zombie thing like kind of seriously, but it's just like really. It's got a funny way about it to where it's like, well, when you're picking your weapons, you want a weapon that you don't have to reload. Machetes, knives, baseball bats. Like these are all good weapons. Like get rid of that gun. And it's almost like a Boy Scout if a Boy Scout needed to know how to survive the zombie apocalypse. And then World War Z was his follow-up that was more serious in tone. But yeah, he comes obviously from a comedic pedigree.
Yeah.
But really cool that he sort of, he found his own spot. He didn't just go into filmmaking that he was. And I think writing comedy, like in a book, is so much tougher than being able to like, perform it for people. So yeah, Zombie Survival Guide, I highly recommend. I haven't read World War Z yet, but I just heard about it, that it is kind of like a journalist, like giving his account of what
Right.
happened.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We've got a few comments, but what I'm going to do is I'll read those comments after you give me your number 5, so we're still on the same page.
Cool.
So yeah, so you do your 5.
Yeah, my number 5 is George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968.
Oh,
Boom. There it is. A lot of things that you said there, Barry, I don't really need to go into too much, but very similar in that the first time I watched it, I was actually probably like 15 or 16.
Right.
And I was completely blown away that a black and white film from 1968 looked so good, was for the most part acted very well, and just the writing and like putting me there, and the makeup, like how cool zombies looked in black and white. I was like, you don't even have to worry about color. It's more about contrast and lighting and like how like, and granted, there are a couple of shots where you're like, especially if you watch it on like a Blu-ray, where you can sort of see a little bit of the, you know, some of the makeup coming off. But for the most part, the minimal makeup that they did on these zombies looks absolutely fantastic. I think Dwayne Jones kills it as Ben. And a funny story about that is, you know, Romero, the character wasn't written as a black character. So that was, Romero was literally just like, I had people audition for the role. I gave the role to the best actor. He was never written as a black character. And it just happened to be this happy accident that the way the film ends and the way it all goes is put together, that it lent itself to social commentary. And it is really cool to see, and they don't make, it's not really made too much of a thing in the film either. There's never a moment where like Mr. Cooper says something like outwardly, like he doesn't use like a slur or anything.
Yeah.
But you can definitely tell that it's these two dudes that both of them want to be the alpha. Both of them think they're right. And then even though Mr. Cooper is technically right, in the end, he definitely doesn't have the right way of going about it. You know, I think that's an interesting tinge to Night of the Living Dead that not a lot of people talk about, is that Mr. Cooper was absolutely 100% right. Barricading yourself in the basement was the best possible scenario, but he had a shit way of making it, communicating it to people, and basically just threatening to people, or, you know, threatening people with barricading them out. But yeah, and then, I mean, it's crazy too that the day that they finished filming and they put the film in the can and they start driving it to LA is the day that Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed. So all this stuff, yeah, it's this crazy storm of things that are happening that it's, in a way, it's like accidental that the film has this amazing commentary about it. And that I think that's sometimes the way it works best, right? You just write the best movie you can, you cast the best actors. And just like any other piece of art, once you show that art to another person or to an audience, it becomes theirs as well. It's not just the creator's piece anymore. And I think the one thing that the audience brought to a movie like Night of the Living Dead is that we see the issues that every country all across the world has with whether it's racism or just prejudice or just somebody looking different than you and you not wanting to really, you know, listen to them or get along with them. So yeah, Night of the Living Dead, awesome. I would love to see this film as a stage play with like a rotating stage. One half is inside, one half is outside. And I want the actresses and actors I want it to be black and white, a black and white play. And then at the end, a bunch of zombies start walking down the halls of the aisles and everything. I just, for whatever reason, I just think that would be such an immersive experience to do it in black and white live. But yeah, what a movie. It kicked off the whole subgenre, and it still stands the test of time. I agree with you. I can put it on, and I love it. Still love it to this day.
Same. Yeah, I think
I still want to cry every time the ending comes up. And actually, the last time we watched it, and Kate, my wife Kate, had seen it before, but when the ending hits, she's like, "Oh my god, this movie is so depressing." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of realistic. It's just, you know."
There you go. That's a social commentary from back in the 60s as well. It's advanced. It's so far ahead for its time.
And like you said too, it doesn't hit you on the head with it. So I think that's what Romero did so well at the early part of his career.
Definitely. So yeah, well, before we go into the next ones, we'll go through some of the chats there.
Yeah.
Shell is in the chat and says, what about the French film The Night Eats the World? I've not heard of that one. I like French horror is pretty good. The Night Eats the World.
And I think right below Tony had said what the name is in English usually. It's called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. Is that the one that you're talking about, Tony?
That sounds familiar as well. It's got a decent rating. The Night Eats the World.
Nice.
It's called The Night Eats the World in the UK.
Oh, okay.
As well.
Don't know why we wouldn't just use that name in the US unless there's a copyright.
Unless he's talking about something else. Also known as... No, it's definitely The Night Eats the World everywhere.
Okay.
Canada, The Night Eats the World. Yeah, The Night Eats the World. I think Tony must be talking about a different film.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll need to add that to my watch list.
Thank you, Shell, for the recommendation there.
Yeah, absolutely. Resident Dr. Evil said, I wish we could have gotten a World War Z movie that closely adapted the book. Yeah, I mean, luckily I didn't know. Maybe that's why I really enjoyed the movie, because I don't know the differences between the movie and the book. So sometimes that's a blessing if you've not read the book. Tony says, World War Z, I didn't like it the first time I watched it, but on a rewatch, I loved it. I can get that. I think a lot of the times, like you said, Davey, when you see a big star in a zombie film, it kind of takes you out of the movie. But with Brad Pitt as Jerry, I think he's like, how do I explain this? He was like Tom Cruise in Edge of Tomorrow. Have you seen Edge of Tomorrow?
I don't think so. That's
No,
the one where he keeps on. It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So in a Tom Cruise movie, he's the best character ever. He can do no wrong. But in Edge of Tomorrow, he makes a lot of mistakes and he's vulnerable, and it just doesn't feel like Tom Cruise. It's the same with Brad Pitt in World War Z. He's not this handsome man from Troy who can kill everybody. You know,
God, that friggin' movie, Jesus.
Yeah. So he's a human being in this film.
Yeah.
He makes mistakes, but he's smart as well, and he's just a regular Joe, and that's why I love it. And so he doesn't feel like Brad Pitt. He just feels like your regular character, who is just your everyday man. So again, that's World War Z.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, you definitely should. Resident Dr. Evil said, yeah, it's a reporter that talked to a bunch of people that were involved in pivotal moments, but the outbreak is already over at that point. What was that?
Gotcha. World War Z, the book.
Oh, the book, right, okay.
Yeah, it's like an account of it, like afterwards kind of thing. Yeah.
And the book is pretty short. I love short books.
There you go.
Tony said the book would never work as a film if faithfully adapted. If that's the case, maybe they filmed, because like I said, they filmed the end twice because they couldn't use the one that they did use in film initially because it's too hard hitting. Robert Nickerson, I think this is Robert's first comment, said, Welcome, Robert. He said, my top favorite zombie films are Night of the Living Dead 1990, the original Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, and the first two Return of the Dead films. If you've just entered the chat, Robert, Return of the Living Dead did feature on both our lists. Return of the Living Dead 2 featured on mine, and Day of the Dead has featured on mine. I don't know if it's featured on yours yet, has it? No.
If it's on there, we'll find out.
You never know. Resident Dr. Evil said, I think it could work as a film, but a limited series might be better. Yeah, sometimes adaptations could work as a more longer thing. Oh, we've got quite a few chats here. Night of the Living Dead 68 is the definitive zombie film for me. Sure, some do it better, but I do think it's the best. And again,
it's really good. It's really good, Tony. I would never argue with somebody that says that's the best one of all time. I'd be like, I love it. Yeah.
See, if you put that at your number one, I'd be like, yep, fair play.
Yeah. Stands the test of time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Castellar says, I like Diary of the Dead and Land of the Dead. Well, Davey already put Land of the Dead on his list, Castellar. Maybe he'll put Diary of the Dead on there as well. You never know. Oh, Colin is a good zombie film. Is that the one with the Glaswegian guy from My Country? Oh my God.
You know, now I'm thinking of one that I'm like, ooh, this one could have, maybe I should have considered it. Like you had that earlier where you're like, oh no. Because I'm thinking of one called Fido.
Fido, that's the one with Billy Connolly, is it?
Yeah.
I was thinking Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly is awesome. He's so good.
Colin's not that one, but I got them mixed up before.
I know. I've never heard of Colin.
I have. I've not seen it. I kind of avoided it because I heard bad things about it. So I just never bit the bullet. Resident Dr. Evil said, I've seen The Night Eats the World. It's decent. Oh yeah, I've not seen that one yet. Gene says, the only zombie movie I've seen, is Night of the Living Dead. And it's a good one to watch. Shell said, you're welcome. Yep, I've added it to the watch list. Robert said, have you seen the 68 Night of the Living Dead with extended opening sequence? I love the classic horror music of the original. I've not seen an extended opening. Have you?
Are you talking about the version that's the 30th anniversary version where this guy shot extra scenes and put like rock and roll music in it because it's public domain, so you can do whatever you want. So there's a 30th anniversary version where this guy, I think he shot extra scenes, absolutely, and then he put him, I think it's himself that is playing like this preacher that's basically like trying to make it all like this religious thing, and at the end the preacher has been bitten by a zombie but I haven't turned because the Lord is on my side. And it's just like, it's, to me, seemed totally against the spirit of Romero by like making it a religious kind of thing. Which Romero always did a really good job of like dancing around that kind of subject in a, you know, respectful way for everybody, I think. I don't know if that's the version you're talking about. Maybe there was an extended version of original footage that I don't know about. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Since it's public domain, it's been remade, and like Sid Haig is in a 3D version of the film that came out in the early 2000s. And it's just, it's unfortunate because if you just want to find the one that's George Romero's, you're going to find a whole, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for, you're going to have to sift through a bunch of stuff, unfortunately.
That's why you should buy the Blu-ray or the 4K.
Yeah, I've got the Blu-ray, the Criterion Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's the best one to have. So let's go into the next one. We're on to number 4 now, Davey. Okay. My number 4 is 28 Days Later from 2002. This is a British zombie film. Now, this one came out a year before the US because it's a UK movie. It was funded by the British National Lottery as well. So it's quite a low-budget, independent zombie horror flick that it only got the recognition because of who directed the movie. It's a Danny Boyle movie, who's a world-famous director. But yeah, 28 Days Later is one of those ones where I don't think they mention zombies in it, but it is a zombie movie. Davey's shaking his head as if it's not a zombie, but it's
kind of. No.
Come on, it's definitely, especially if you watch 28 Weeks Later, it's a zombie film.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's one of those fast-paced zombie movies. It came out 2 years before Dawn of the Dead 2004. So Dawn of the Dead 2004 wasn't the first film that brought out the fast-running zombies. It was 28 Days Later, and probably films before that had
Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead, yeah. But I'm thinking,
slide tackle.
Yeah, slide tackle. But yeah, but I feel like 28 Days Later was the first one that had running zombies that had stakes in the film where you had to go, you had to get out of there, and how quickly you turned as well when you got infected by the infected. You just turned instantly. And I think it was a very emotional movie as well because it follows a group of people, and Brendan Gleeson had a daughter in it as well. So he's got this little young girl that he has to like protect. And because, spoiler alert, he gets infected, he knows he has to be killed. And tell the others to take his kid away, and hopefully they get away. So many twists and turns in the movie as well. It was so bleak, and it cost a lot of money in the UK to do because they had to corner off a lot of London for some of the scenes. And London is an expensive place to do that. So for hours, they would cut off certain parts of London so they can film certain scenes in the movie, which probably took most of the budget. But yeah, lots of twists and turns in the movie, and then you get to this army place with Christopher Eccleston, and you think, okay, they're safe. This is when it turns though, because no longer are they scared of the zombies; it's the people that they're scared of. It feels like an episode of The Walking Dead at times, where it's humans versus humans. But yeah, it's just so fast paced, so visceral, and it was a way ahead of its time, and still it stands the test of time. Over 20 years now, this movie came out, and it's made stars out of people in the film, like Cillian Murphy. He's the star of the movie. So yeah, 28 Days Later. Have you seen 28 Days Later? I'm assuming you have.
Yeah, saw it a couple times in the theater. Probably seen it a few times since then as well. Yeah, I was living in Montana at the time with I was in a punk band, and a couple of the guys were going to school there, and I remember distinctly going to see the film with them. Because like you said, it came out a year later here, so that was in 2003 for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it at the time. Liked it less and less every time I watched it after the first time. Kind of like Donnie Darko, where I was like, wow, what a cool film. And the third time I watched it, I was like, this film thinks I'm stupid. I I don't know. Every night, it's like it can go either way, right? You watch it a few more times, maybe you appreciate it more. Then you watch it a few more times, and you're like, oh, geez, what's going on? But
Yeah, I think something about 28 Days Later is the scenery used in the film is like where I live.
Mhm.
So I recognize cultures, I recognize stores that they have, I recognize the clothing that they wear.
Mm,
Everything's just so like recognizable to me that I could be in that film. So
sure.
I think
And
I connect with the film quite a lot.
yeah, and I haven't seen either of the sequels because of how I started feeling about the first one. Right? It has 2 sequels. Or are they doing the third one now? Right?
They're planning the third one, but
Okay.
it was supposed to be 28 months later, but so much time's passed now.
Yeah.
They're planning 28 years later.
Yeah.
But Danny Boyle's supposed to be coming back, so is Cillian Murphy
Okay.
as well. So
Nice. Sweet.
yeah, so that's my number 4.
Heck yeah. All right. My number 4 is Shaun of the Dead.
Oh,
Happy late 50th birthday, Edgar Wright. You did a knockout job with this film. I had a complete blast watching this in the theater. I took a couple friends of mine, a couple lady friends, not like that, just friends who happen to be ladies. And I don't think they liked it as much as me because they were like having their side conversation. I'm like, I've heard about this film for months. Will you please just let me watch it? Because another instance of like here in the States, you hear about like that it's, oh my gosh, this is this great British film that got made. So you're waiting for months and months to finally get to see it. I love the sense of humor. I mean, obviously, the Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg writing together is just really impressive. And I loved how, again, they pay homage, tons of nods to Romero. It's kind of within those rules. They sort of even like kind of acknowledge some of those rules as they're trying to figure out what the rules are
yeah.
in the real world, you know? I love just how Sean's kind of a loser, and this whole experience is like kind of what makes him a man in a certain regard. I think that's a cool way to sort of like work that into the story. So it's sort of like a buddy comedy meets a love story meets a zombie movie. It's got like all of this wrapped in a whole bunch of great performers that I've seen from so many awesome TV shows and British television. I can't think of the actor's name, but the guy that was in Black Books is so hilarious. The guy that plays David Davs.
Yeah.
He is just such a terrible person, but it's a great performance, right?
Mm.
And this movie, love the way the zombies look, love the how they compare the opening of the movie with everyone just going about their day-to-day life, and then when they're turned into zombies you see those same people and they're pretty much doing the same thing. So I think that's pretty cool. And they even sneak in a couple Evil Dead references. There's at least one where Sean goes to find the roommate and he's like, hey, we're gonna go out to blah blah blah, we were wondering if you would like to, and the shower curtain pulls back, he sees he's a zombie and he goes, join us. And I'm like, join us, that's gotta be an Evil Dead reference, like right there. So setting everything in the bar where they kind of barricade themselves for their final stand, really like that. And this is a movie that to me never gets old, gets better every single time I watch it. I love Bill Nighy is, it's love him in so many films, but in this one I think he definitely elevates everything else that's going on for the short time he's in the film. And yeah, this is an absolute triumph. I'm so happy that George was still around when this was made and that he was able to connect with those guys and get Edgar and Simon to appear in Land of the Dead as a little bit of a thank you. So yeah, really great. I would love to see some more zombie comedies that kind of hit this sort of balance of tone. And so that's why it's up as high as it is. It's a classic, modern classic.
Yeah, I think other since Shaun of the Dead, I think other filmmakers have tried to do something like Shaun of the Dead, and it's not quite hit the mark.
Mhm.
And I've seen many zombie comedy horrors with a bit of romance in them as well. That just some are okay, but they just don't quite hit the mark of Shaun of the Dead. Zombieland
Mhm.
is obviously a close one because that's an American style
Mhm.
humor for the zombie comedy. This one's more British. So yeah, definitely worthy of a top 10 list for sure. Let's go into the chat. We've got a few more chats coming in. Blah, 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 blah. Tony says, Colin is decent, very low budget UK horror film that was made for £50. That was the gimmick. I did not know it cost £50. That's
No.
It's like $60.
That's
I'm like,
nothing.
yeah.
Did you mean 50,000 pounds? Please
I
tell
don't
me you
thi-
meant 50,000 pounds.
No, like I said, that's the gimmick they said. Let me just double check that.
Wow,
Because,
that's hardcore.
yeah, I can't even
And
check.
yeah, Resident Dr. Evil is mentioning that 28 years later. Yeah, sounds like that's the way they're going to have to go for that one for sure.
Yeah, 28 years later. For sure.
We've got Garrett from Born to Be Rad in the chat. What's happening, Garrett?
He's back. You're just in time for the nitty gritty.
Yeah, we're in that top 3 area.
Mark Jones says, hey folks, 28 Days Later is a cracker of a film. You got that right. It might still be on Davey's list.
You'll have to wait and see. You'll have to hang out and wait and see.
We'll find out. So we're on to the top 3 now. Okay, this is where the apologies start coming out again.
I will not apologize for my list.
Me neither. Right. So number 3 for me is Dawn of the Dead. But which one? Oh no. It's George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
That's what I figured, yeah.
Yeah, 1978. So, yeah, I think Dawn of the Dead is on. I'm not saying it's on your number 1, but it is number 1 for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. I've asked people before I've done this video personally, what would you say is your number 1 zombie film would be? And they all said Dawn of the Dead. I'm like, right, I'll take that into consideration. But yeah, it's a fantastic film. For me, again, just like Day of the Dead, it's got that sense of isolation. But in this one, they have more fun with the isolated scenario. I always had dreams, even before I watched Dawn of the Dead, I always had dreams of being able to run around in a shopping mall, just free. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to any store you want, take whatever you want, and everyone else is outside. That's a dream scenario. And I've got a funny feeling that George Romero had those dreams as well. And he's put them into his film. He's taken, again, political things, put it into the movie, but not hit you over the head with it. He's given us a zombie film, a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, and he's put in a dream scenario that he's probably fantasized about, just like everybody else. So yeah, I think it's a great scenario. Yes, there's some cheesy moments in it, and that's the reason why it's not number 1, because there's some moments in it that take me out. Like, remember when the bikers go into the place?
Yeah, the pie fight.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly. So I'm like, some of the music was a bit corny. Some of the music was great, but some was quite corny as well. I'm like,
that's just, Goblin for you. Yeah, they're definitely that kind of vibe for sure.
It just felt like it was getting serious, and then it didn't, if you know what I mean. So I'm giving you some negatives, but I really shouldn't, because it's an almost perfect film. It was infinitely better than Night of the Living Dead, and even that is almost a masterpiece. So I hold Dawn of the Dead at the highest regards. It's just not my number 1 or my number 2.
Well, hey, we're in alignment once again, Barry. Dawn of the Dead 1978 is my number 3 as well. Oh yeah.
The only reason I'm showing some of these is because we both said them, so
yeah,
it goes up.
No, it works out. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. And this movie, man, the first time I watched it, I was probably like 16 or 17, not long after seeing Night of the Living Dead for the first time. In my little tiny hometown of Juneau, Alaska, it's 30,000 people. There was one video store, one mom and pop video store that had a copy on VHS. And everyone that loves Dawn of the Dead knows that it's nothing new that this movie goes in and out of availability. It's just so expensive, tough to get a hold of. I think even now, I think the Divimax Blu-ray is the last Blu-ray release of this one. I don't know, and that must have been, who knows, almost 20 years ago now at this point. So it was a really special kind of gathering for me and my friends to get to watch this film together. It took me through so much emotion. I mean, I think we can forego spoiler talk here. Like when Roger gets bitten, I had a pit in my stomach that felt like somebody that I really loved was going to die. And that's a testament to Romero's writing, that he gives you time to get to know these people. I think sometimes that's something that's like missing for me in modern movies, is that I want to get to know the characters. I want to see some mundane, because then it makes me feel like, oh, they're like me, I'm like them, you know? And to that point as well, all the time they spend in the mall, yes, on the forefront, you're thinking, wow, what a joy, you get this whole place to yourselves. But there's this great shot where Steven and Fran are laying in bed together. And I think like they're both smoking cigarettes, and they're just like laying like mannequins. Like they look like they could just be zombies. And I love that Romero can like show you something of like, these guys have everything that they could ever want, but having to live in a cage is what really takes your humanity away. Yeah. And that they lose their sense of humanity, even though they're still alive. Like, are they really alive? And I think that's such a great point that he makes here. I do think that for the most part, the Goblin soundtrack really, really works for me. I adore what they do with their like all the, like really like news at 11, but then they just like, to me, it matches the action so well. Romero would always talk about how this movie's like a comic book, and I think the music plays a really big part in that. I also think the like melted red crayon blood kind of look plays a part in that as well. I think it just becomes a little more fantastic. They're not trying to be realistic, and I think that's why Dawn of the Dead is the fan favorite. Like you had said, Barry, I think it's something about it elevates itself by not taking itself too seriously, but also not being so silly that it's an outright comedy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Ken Faree is amazing in it. Scott Reiniger. I mean, all the performers I really enjoy. I even enjoy Flyboy, because he's got a little bit of a character arc. Like he doesn't start out being the greatest guy, but they all realize that they need Fran to be able to be well equipped, and that it doesn't make sense to just try to sideline, you know, a person just because she's a woman, because there's only 4 of them and they need every single one of them to make this thing work. So yeah, Dawn of the Dead, gosh, I love this movie so much. And I think somebody had said which cut in the chat there. I think the director's cut, which is the theatrical cut, Romero got to do. So there's an extended cut, and I think people mistake the extended cut for a director's cut. But George was always clear about the cut of the film that's like the 2-hour standard cut is his cut. Mm-hmm. And then there's an extended version that's like 2 hours 40. And then there's like a European cut that Dario Argento put together that's a little shorter and takes out some of the humor moments. It leans in more to the gore side. So I imagine the pie fight's out of there, although it's been a while since I watched that. Yeah. And little tidbit, because you said that Romero probably fantasized about doing this, being in a mall. So malls were relatively new at the time. He actually went on a tour of a mall. And I think it was right before he like went to Italy to visit Dario, and he did a tour of a mall and was like, wow, what would happen if maybe some people like locked themselves in here during a zombie apocalypse? Because he wasn't even considering making a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And then he told Dario Argento that idea, like, hey, I kind of have this idea of blah, 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 blah. And Dario's like, well, I'll fly you and your wife out to Italy. I'll give you 2 weeks to write the script. You can stay in one of my homes. And that's like the story of how Dawn of the Dead came together, is that Romero went out to Italy, put it all together, and voila. And here we are with yet another masterpiece. This guy was just banger after banger there for a good long while. And yeah, what can you say about Dawn of the Dead 1978 that hasn't been said before? But it's celebrating 45 years this year, so that's pretty awesome.
46.
Oh. Well, yeah, I think it came out in Italy at the end of 79, and then it debuted in 79, or no, sorry,
78.
Yeah, 78, and then came out here in the States, Pittsburgh and New York, like in April of 78, and then it hit Hollywood on May 11th, 78. So it had a huge like a rollout, so it's tough. Like I kind of consider when it hit Hollywood as like wide release. So I think you can just celebrate it all the time, anyways. You don't even have to wait for a big anniversary for sure.
No, definitely. We've got what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was going to say that you're like the IMDb trivia guy, Davey, with all this trivia.
It's because I watch those documentaries and I love commentaries. Commentaries is where you learn like firsthand from, so you don't even have to worry about reading it and wondering if it's true. Like if George says it and he gives that snicker and pushes up his glasses, then you know it's true and you can just go ahead and repeat it as gospel. Hallelujah, George Romero.
I agree with that. We'll go into the chat before we get on to our top two. Christopher Charles said 28 Days is an awesome film. 28 Weeks was very good also. The first 10 minutes is intense. I know 28 Days was meant to be filmed in that way, but the picture is terrible.
Oh, like
yeah, it's very gritty.
Digital quality, yeah.
Now,
do you mean 28 Days with Sandra Bullock, or do you mean 28 Days Later? I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Have you seen 28 Weeks Later, Davey?
I never have. I didn't go back because the luster for 28 Days Later was lost on me after like the third or fourth time I saw it. I was just like,
I think you may like.
I don't like it as much, but I do like Robert Carlyle as a performer, so maybe I would.
Yeah, well, like Christopher said, the first 10 minutes of 28 Weeks Later is absolutely intense.
All right.
I won't spoil anything, but it takes place in a little farmhouse, and something happens in the farmhouse, and oh my God, after that, you're just like, all I can say is run.
Did Danny Boyle come back for that one too?
No, he didn't. It was it's a French director, I think. I think it was Jean. Oh, do you know what? I need to search this because he's went on to direct a few good things after that, 28 Weeks Later.
And we got MAGA Cat in the chat. Just wanted to say hi. What's happening, MAGA? Great to see you. Always in the chat in every other video I'm in, or you're not in, but in the chat room in. I'm seeing you all the time there. So great to see you here, man. See here. And Garrett agrees with something I said about Dawn of the Dead 1978. So something I said there.
I agree.
Struck a good nerve there. That's great. I love that movie so much. I mean, what can you say?
MAGA. Oh, pressing the wrong things here. Jesse Wedge, thumbs up. Yep, cool. And Mall. That'll be for Dawn of the Dead. Mark Jones said, happy 420, MAGA. MAGA
oh, yeah, because happy 420, guys. I will be celebrating here shortly. I've been a good boy so far today because it's not every day you get to hop on a live stream with somebody that you've looked up to so long as a content creator. So I'm staying good for Barry here, but my wife and I are going to jump on and watch Grandma's Boy here in just a little bit. And we'll do a live stream for that and get stoned to the bejesus.
If I'm still awake at that time, I'll jump on and have a little watch. I love Grandma's Boy. Such a great film.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely.
I
have to say one quick thing about Dawn of the Dead before we move on. My favorite line, and I think about this all the time when I see somebody that like they got this big truck and they can't even like keep it in the one lane, or they can't even park it. They don't even know, like, you bought this $40,000 thing to show how big of a man you are and you can't even like handle it. I always think of when Peter's looking through the scope on the rifle and he goes, "It's a shame." And Flyboy's like, "What?" And he's like, the only guy that can miss with this gun is the sucker with the bread to buy it." And I always think of that when people like can't handle their shit. I'm like, you have the money, but you don't have everything else it takes to rightfully wield what you've got. And I just think that that's Romero just stepping back, just 3-pointer, all net. You know, some of his dialogue is the greatest I've ever heard. And I think every time I watch Romero's movies, especially Dawn and Day, I'm like, this is where Tarantino gets it. Tarantino always talks about those spaghetti westerns, and I think maybe the style of his films is a little more like that. But when you look at the harsh language that Tarantino uses and the humor and the quips, I think he gets a lot of it from George. Like, we can talk about with Dawn of the Dead, there's some uncomfortable language, but the people that are using the uncomfortable language are not good people. Yeah. So it's like these things do fit in film. You don't want
Absolutely.
your heroes saying these words, but like, you know, we live in a place where people say ugly things. There are unsavory people. We need unsavory characters in film. We can't sanitize film. And so I'll get off my soapbox, but I just think we need film to return to a place where dangerous things can happen and unsavory characters are there, but also get their comeuppance.
Yeah, and there's also subtlety to it as well, which takes us to Tony's
Yeah.
comment. Romero's social commentary was always subtle. That's why it didn't work in Diary of the Dead, because he was hitting you in the head with it. I've only seen that once, so I don't know which parts that you mean, but because it was 2007, I'm guessing he was trying to move with the times, but times are not pleasant sometimes.
Yeah.
Jesse Wedge says, absolutely love this movie, Dawn of the Dead, 78. Yep. Gene said, Barry, where did you get the zombie background? I just got it from YouTube. It's like a 45-second zombie background video that's a loop, so you don't see like a cut, which is good. The zombies go into it, they walk away and come back, and it goes over and over. Quite cool.
Those are all Barry's adoring fans banging on the outside of his home, trying to get it.
Kate says, I think Dawn is my number one.
Oh, that's my wife right there. There she
Oh,
is.
so I was like, she looks familiar. And Kate also says, when there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. So we're on to our top two now, Davey.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, hopefully we can do this justice.
Yeah, I think we got this. We got this by the ass.
Yeah.
Right?
So my number two is one that's already been mentioned before, Davey, by you.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm going to show
I think I know what it is.
Do you? I don't think you do.
Yeah, but you reveal, yes.
Okay. So my number two is Shaun of the Dead.
Nice.
2004. Now, I think maybe the way I feel about this film, maybe you feel similar to Zombieland. I'm not too sure. Because Zombieland is an American comedy horror. So you get the comedy in Zombieland more than someone from the UK. And I feel like I get the comedy in Shaun of the Dead more than someone from the US, for example. Maybe I don't, maybe I do. But the way that Shaun of the Dead is, the comedy in Shaun of the Dead is exactly like TV shows that we get here in the UK, like comedy TV shows. And I'm sure you've seen some of them anyway, like the UK's Office and stuff like that, or Shameless that we got in the UK. We've had so many great comedy TV shows that's where they came from. They came from something called Spaced. I don't know if you've heard of Spaced.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the cast is from Spaced, right? And that's where Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg got together, right?
Yeah, and Nick Frost and a few other characters. So it's that British comedy that you just get. And believe it or not, Shaun of the Dead isn't even my favourite film in the Edgar Wright trilogy. But when it comes to a zombie film, it's fantastic. The comedy in it is great. You probably get this, you probably know this yourself, but in almost every Edgar Wright film, whether it's comedy or not, there's that one moment at least that you feel sad and you almost cry. See that part where Sean's mum was turning into a zombie? I was like, oh, what? I'm supposed to be laughing right now, and I'm not laughing.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking even when you know that he's going to turn.
Yeah.
Like they have that emotional moment in the car where he's like, I knew that I couldn't replace your dad. I just wanted to like do the best I could. I mean, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it like, you want your movies to have heart no matter what genre they are. And absolutely, Edgar Wright is, a creator that knows how to put heart in everything. I mean, even something as ridiculous as Hot Fuzz, like, has great emotional moments. I mean, it's a hallmark of good writing.
Absolutely, it hits you in the feels every time, even though you know it's coming, you get it. And like you said, so there's not much more I can add to Shaun of the Dead because you've already hit a lot of the key notes. But the references to other zombie films are so on the nose that they're so funny. Like when Sean was talking to his mum on the phone, and then Ed is like taking the phone off him saying, "We're coming to get you, Barbara."
Yes, exactly.
Great, like so obvious, so on the nose, and the way that they act when the zombies are around them, like for the first time, a zombie comes into their living room and like, "Oh my god, he's got an arm off," And then they're in the garden and they're throwing their LPs, their vinyl. It's like Batman soundtrack. Throw it. It's every time. It's just so funny. But yeah, I can't really add too much about it. It's similar to 28 Days Later for me in the fact that it's close to home. I see the houses are like my style of houses. The clothes that they wear, I recognize the areas and stuff. So it's one that I'm very proud of, that it's a film that was made in the UK and it made its way all the way over to the US and Canada, and everybody loves it over there as well. And it turned Edgar Wright, Nick Frost, and Simon Pegg into megastars, especially Simon Pegg. So yeah, it's a film that just blew up all around the world. So yeah,
it's got to be cool to see, like you're talking about, like the little snacks, like the Coke cans look different over there in the UK. I can totally understand that when you're used to seeing a bunch of, like, when it being dominated by American cinema and you see like, you're like, what the heck are these bags of chips that look like nothing I've ever seen? And when I say chips, I guess I mean crisps, potato chips.
Potato chips,
and then I mean, like you're saying with Sean doing his whole like just kind of these really grandiose like acting gestures that really sell the comedy. Now this is a great choice for number 2. I knew it would be high in my list.
It started out at number 4 when I was doing the list. That was as low as it got though, and then I went, number 3 maybe, and I was like, nah, number two. And do you guys get cornettos in the US?
We don't. We just have different. There's like that Klondike company does just a whole bunch of different like ice cream cones, and there's this one called Choco Taco. Do you guys have that out there?
No.
It's amazing. It's literally like a waffle cone folded like a taco shell, with the ice cream in the middle, the chocolate drizzle on top, and it's so good. But it's basically you're just eating a taco ice cream. But it seems, because it seems like cornetto is just it's an ice cream cone just with a little bit of paper that you have to rip off the top.
Yeah, basically it is. Yeah. So it's called the Cornetto trilogy. Do you know that?
Yeah, they feature it in each one of those 3 movies, right? Yeah.
So it's the 3 flavors of cornettos. It's called the 3 flavors trilogy. So you get a different cornetto in every film, and it's Nick Frost that has the cornetto in every film.
Yeah.
So it's genius. It's just little things like that that they don't have to do, but they do it, and it works so well. But just on a side note, Hot Fuzz is my favorite in the Cornetto trilogy.
It's really good.
Such a great film. So Hot Fuzz is my favorite. Then it's Shaun of the Dead, and then it's The World's End. The World's End does take a bit of a dip in quality,
sure,
but it's still an enjoyable film. And
I think
it's a great trilogy. So
Hot Fuzz gets better every time I watch it. I love Timothy Dalton too, so it's really fun to see him just get to chew up the scenery and be really big. He's, other than Daniel Craig, would be my favorite. I mean, Sean Connery's obviously the best Bond, but I think that Timothy Dalton just gets, he's in one of my favorite. Living Daylights is probably my favorite Bond film. Like that one and Goldfinger, like right next to each other, so it's awesome to see him in something like that. Cause I feel like after his whole Bond thing, people were sort of like, oh, he's no good because he only did 2 Bond movies. And it's like, well, they're both bangers. So look out. And British TV shows, real quick. I love British style humor. My brother grew up watching Monty Python with all of his friends. So I grew up with that stuff as a little kid. I do love the British Office, of course, but my favorite British TV show of all time, I really love the Graham Linehan shows. So I love Father Ted. The IT Crowd is like the greatest British sitcom of all time in my mind. And Black Books is really funny too. But the IT Crowd, I could just watch that over and over again. To me, it's this great, the IT Crowd is like, they were inspired by American comedies, but it's still a British comedy because it feels like The Simpsons meets Seinfeld, where sometimes a character is just the side character for one episode and they steal the whole show. And then you've got these dumb bosses that get to do whatever they want, kind of like in The Simpsons and all that. And so to me, it's just like, wow, this is the perfect blend of like American and British style humor. And I think that's why it works so well for a guy like me that, admittedly grew up watching a bunch of American humor. But I love the dryness of Brit humor. I love, I can pick up on the accents maybe a little bit more just because I'm used to hearing it. So I feel like I don't miss too much other than like a pop culture reference that might be just more centralized to that area of the world.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Have you seen all episodes of IT Crowd or some of them?
All of them,
Like,
multiple times.
So,
Yeah.
again, off topic, but do you remember the one where I can't remember his name now? The one with the curly hair, the Irish guy. He
Roy,
pre-
played
Ro-
by what is the actor's name? I'm
yeah,
totally
Roy.
missing it too. Chris
Chris,
O'Dowd.
Chris O'Dowd, yeah. So he's pretending he's disabled.
Yeah. I'm
Do you remember that one?
disabled.
I'm
Yeah.
disabled. And he goes
Yeah.
off in the van.
Yeah.
and he
What
goes up-
kind of disability do you have? Leg disabled. I'll
so
have a
good.
whiskey. Make it to double though.
And then I think her name was Jen or something. She sees him go off. She sees him like disabled. And she's like, oh my God. So she turns around for a drink and there's Moss at the bar. He's like,
Yeah.
what would you like? And she's like, oh my
Can I
God.
help you, ma'am?
Yeah.
And then the one guy that's like, oh, you Irish are always playing. Get up out of that chair. Oh, I'm so tired. I need a wheelchair. And he's like, you Irish people are all mad. And he's like, yeah, we're all insane.
I'm disabled. Yeah, so good. Anyway, back on topic. That was my number 2 there. So it's time to hear your number 2, Davey.
My number 2. Get ready to have your world rocked, YouTube.
You ready?
My number 2, Davey Deathray's official number 2 zombie film of all time. Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead by Peter Jackson.
Oh,
This
I wasn't
film
expecting that.
Is such a fun time, such a wild experience. I really want Peter Jackson to come back to horror because he does such a great job at blending horror and comedy and really basking in the blood of the horror. And I think there's something that you can see his influence from Evil Dead, obviously. And I love that he wears that on his sleeve. This movie is the bloodiest movie I've ever seen. Maybe 2013's Evil Dead outdid the blood just with that rain scene. Who knows? But the very first time I watched Dead Alive, I had just finished 8th grade. Some classmates of mine had a little get together at their house. A couple or a set of twins had a little party over at their house. We rented Dead Alive. I don't know why we picked it. One of them, I believe Lisa, it was Lisa and Paige Mitchell. Lisa had to run to the bathroom and throw up during one of the scenes because it just made her gag until she lost it. And so this film, I tried putting it on a couple months ago and Kate was like, I don't know if I can watch this. And I'm like, well, if you can't handle what's happened in the first 5 minutes, then yeah, I don't think you can watch it because we ain't seen nothing yet because there's some like hardcore stuff in here. But I just think it's such a fun movie that, you know, plays with the zombie tropes. You get to, you know, it's a different way for the zombie like apocalypse, so to speak, to kind of kick off with the rat monkey spreading the, you know, disease or whatever. I think there's a really cool backstory here with Lionel, you know, kind of being beat down by his overbearing mother and him slowly like realizing what traumatizing event happened early in his life that he had blocked out because of his mother's grip and control. So there's a really cool, you know, him having like this realization, but then also becoming like Ash from the Evil Dead, where he just over time turns into a badass. And when he rings that lawnmower and he's holding it up and he goes, party's over. It's like one of the greatest moments in zombie horror history right there. Gosh, there's so much to say about this movie. It cracks me up. It grosses me out. It is infinitely entertaining, and the practical effects and the editing in this film are some of the most impressive I've ever seen. I think that's what Peter Jackson does better than anyone else. There's a shot where a woman runs up to the camera, holds her head and screams, and without cutting, a fist comes through her mouth, and then it's a dummy on the zombie's arm. And how, I don't know how they made that cut, but that edit is one of the most impressive edits I've ever seen. And yeah, Dead Alive is very rightly deserving, in my opinion, of the number 2 spot on this list.
Excellent. Now, I will be honest, I've not seen that for 20 years, I'd say.
Oh, wow.
It's all coming back to me with the things that you're saying, which is great. I will need to watch it again. It is one that I considered putting on the list, but I thought it'd be unfair to do that if I hadn't seen it. recently.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
great choice. And obviously Frank Riker, he said at the start that that's something that he would have put on his list. So
Mhm.
I guess a lot of people love it. Just another bit of trivia for you, Davey. I don't know if you knew this, you probably do, but Peter Jackson, who directed the movie, was also in Hot Fuzz. Do you know that?
I didn't know that, or if I
Yeah.
did, I must have forgotten. That's great.
Yeah,
Is
he
was he
played.
one of the police officers, or who is
No,
he?
he played Santa Claus that stabbed Sergeant Nicholas Angel,
Hmm,
and that's what made him go to the countryside.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so there you
That's
go.
too cool. That's awesome. Yeah,
There you
what
go.
a Peter Jackson is I mean, talk about a career. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like to go from those movies, to go from Bad Taste and Dead Alive. And I know he made Heavenly Creatures and Frighteners in between, but to have those two movies start your career and then go to Lord of the Rings, it's like Sam Raimi starting with Evil Dead and going to Spider-Man, and
Mhm.
it's what an accomplishment.
And he was lucky enough to work with Michael J. Fox before Michael J. Fox retired.
Yeah,
You know,
I think,
and
and
the
I
Frighteners.
yeah, and I think The Frighteners is very underrated. I
Oh,
think
I
The
love it.
Frighteners is a really good movie.
I
Um,
love that movie so much.
And we've got Danielle. Danielle, are you still in the chat? She says, "Hi, everyone from Vegas. I'm new
Vegas.
to
Oof.
commenting here, but I'm loving this live. Thank you
Hello,
so much
Danielle.
for checking us out."
Do
I'm
you know
not too
Danielle?
far from you, Danielle. I am just 4 hours drive south of you in the Phoenix area.
There you go.
So I don't know Danielle, but I love when people are able to just sort of stumble upon a
Yeah,
stream like this and find something that fits their interest. That's awesome.
that's nice. And I'm only a 10-hour flight from you guys as well, which
There
is
you go.
a long flight away. Are you going to H50?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Man, after how awesome H45 was, I was depressed for like 2 weeks after, because it
Mhm.
just leaving that atmosphere. I got to meet Frank and Darren, got to meet Cody Snyder out there. So it was just great to meet like other people from the community, from this
Yeah.
community. But man, like Malik Akkad was just the sweetest guy, like going around and mixing it up with everyone at the after party. And getting to meet a whole bunch of the performers. It was
Mhm.
unreal. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
I wish I went. I'm definitely going to go to H50, so I'll see you there.
We'll get a place together. Let's get an Airbnb so we don't have to stay in some gross hotel.
Myself and Darren from the Slaughtered Lamb, we're getting an Airbnb in a couple of weeks because we're going to Sheffield for the HorrorCon in Sheffield. So
Nice.
I will say to Darren, I might take my laptop and maybe me and Darren can do a little video
You might
together.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Geez, every night you could just do a little like, hey, just want to catch you up on what we did today.
What we could do as well is we could sit in a double bed together and we can face the laptop towards us. We'll go,
Oh
hi
yeah.
guys. Right. So
Nothing to see here. Just a couple of grown men laying in a bed together, making a YouTube video. It's your problem if you think it's weird.
just chilling. We'll get lots of chat. So before we go into our number ones, just catch up the chat. Robert says, do you guys have a favorite zombie from any film? That's actually another good video because there is a lot of zombies out there. I couldn't say right now. I've got a few in mind, but that's actually a good idea for a video, Robert. Very good idea. Jesse split in two, laughing. Oh, I think that's because of Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead, so creative. Bit of Monty Python humor. Yeah, definitely. Gary Tiger's in. What's up, Davey?
Gory, how you doing, bud? Great to see you.
Kate says, I love the Mighty Bush. Is Neil from the IT crowd in the Mighty Bush? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I've never seen.
He's one of the main characters in the Mighty Boosh.
Yeah, I thought that
the Mighty Boosh is definitely like super surreal and very, very out there. I would say out of all those other shows, like when I watch something like the IT crowd, I'm like, I don't think this is that different from American comedy.
Yeah.
But the Mighty Boosh is very like British, as far as more in the line of Monty Python, just random and bizarre sometimes, but also very funny.
Before we give our number ones, David, do you think we should give our honorable mentions?
Yeah, we could do that for sure.
I think so.
Well, wait, it'll give it away though, right?
Well, I suppose it would. Yeah, I suppose it would. Yeah.
Let's do number ones. We can do honorable mentions really quick. And then I'm gonna run the heck out of here. No, I'm just joking.
Bye. Right. Okay.
Goodbye.
So, my number one. I'm sure you know it, David, but other people wouldn't know it. So I genuinely don't know your number one, but here we go. My number one is, and I'll show it because you've already mentioned it, is, oh, wrong button. It's Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. What was that? Boo. Boo. Yeah, boo, boo. So, yeah, my number one zombie film is Dawn of the Dead from 2004. Now, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead is a masterpiece, absolute masterpiece. Everything I love about George Romero's Dawn of the Dead is present in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. That's what I feel. However, I think the only difference between the two of them for me is it feels like there's more at stake in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. It also feels that your life is on the line in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. It's more fast paced. There's almost zero comedy. There's a few comedy moments in it, but there's almost zero comedy in it. And there's a lot of scary scenes. I mean, I was 20 when I watched this film, but I still felt like, oh, this is quite scary. There's some scary moments all the way through the film. And I genuinely feared for every character who was not a zombie. And it still had the same beats as the original. They go to the shopping mall, but there's just so much more build up. See that scene where she escapes from her house from her husband and the little girl next door, Vivian. And as she's running out in the street and all these people are eating each other, people are getting knocked down by ambulances, everyone was going nuts. And then she was driving away and you see an aerial shot of her driving in I think it's a tanker or something, or a van at a gas station, and it blew up. I'm like, this is like massive. And it didn't cost a lot of money, but it felt like a huge scale zombie film, something I hadn't seen before. You know, the biggest scale zombie film is World War Z, but before that it was Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
You already covered quite a lot of this, but there was some social commentary in Zack Snyder's as well. But again, he was able to cover it and just subtly put it in there. There were some scenes that I thought, 2 seconds. There were some scenes I thought maybe it was a little bit too much, like the zombie baby. But it was like,
it's so quick with the zombie baby.
Yeah, it was over.
Yeah. He loves his slow motion shots of shells falling to the ground, doesn't he? Kate and I just watched his Dawn of the Dead like a month ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just like the beginning of Batman v Superman. You get to see the shell, slow motion of the shell. I'm like, he just loves that. Like every movie he has, if he can show that, he will.
Yeah, so it's very, very early. Zack Snyder, and obviously James Gunn wrote the film as well. So yeah, even though it's my number one, I can't really add too much to it because you did cover it quite perfectly. And I can only say it just feels like the original, but there's more at stake. And we've got the running zombie as well. So yeah, it's definitely my number one. I did do a 20th anniversary video of this last month as well, that I spoke for about 20 minutes. So if you really want to know more in depth, then please watch that video. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead from 2004 is my number one.
Nice. Now, did you notice there's a couple things? So one of the stores is called Galen Ross. Did you notice that? Because that's the actress that played Fran in the original.
I did not notice that, no.
As they're walking up to the mall, I think it's like Galen Ross instead of J.C. Penney or whatever.
Right.
Which is great because her name does sound like it could be a department store for clothing,
Maybe
And
that's
then
why I noticed.
I can't remember the character's name, but basically like your main guy that's like, I got a pink slip for being a husband every time, but the thing I was best at was being a dad. Like that,
Jake Weber?
Jake Weber, yeah. So did you notice at the beginning, he's basically wearing Ben's outfit from when she first runs into that group. He's got the brown pants, the white shirt kind of half untucked, and he has like the tire iron in his hand. And I'm like, oh, that's like an homage to Ben from the original Night of the Living Dead. It just sort of, that was like one of those things. Very first time I saw it in the theater, I was like, these people know what's up and they're paying their respects here, to the OG. But yeah,
you're the trivia guy, Davey.
I'm just nuts for it, Barry. It's because I don't have friends. I wanted to leave that hanging just as long as I could. It's because I don't have friends, so I sit around and I watch movies and read about them. George Romero is my friend, and in this case, so is Zack Snyder. Yeah, I think that's a solid pick for number one. Man, Yeah, I couldn't say anything about that. That's a good
Well,
good choice there. Yeah, when you
thank
put out that video the other month, I was like, oh, well, I mean, I like the original Don more, but I can totally see how this one is superior,
Yeah.
in another person's opinion. And you're right, it does move, it's got a great pace. I think I'm forgetting his name too, but the character that's like the asshole security guard, what's his name?
Big Rain.
CJ, he's got a great character arc, right? He ends up sacrificing himself at the end, and
Oh
at
yeah,
the beginning, he's
Michael.
basically like, I'm gonna put a gun in everyone's face if they don't do what I say.
Yeah.
And he slowly, like, he realizes that, that for the good of the team, like, you gotta start thinking about others. So they do a good job at even paying attention to that in a really fast-paced movie.
Yeah, he had a good character arc because he was like the asshole at the start, and then he became a kind of hero at the end, saving people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone, all
He
the
kind of
characters
steps
were great.
up. Yeah,
Mhm.
he steps up and starts like, yeah, I'm gonna be on your guys' side now. It's awesome. So
Yeah.
Great pick, man. Great pick.
Thank you. So I've no idea, absolutely no
I
idea what
know.
your
What's
number
it
one is.
gonna be, you guys? Hey, real quick in the chat, can you guys drop in what you think that based on what I've said so far, you
My
guess
son's in
what
the chat.
my number one would be?
My son Jack is in the chat. Hello,
What's
Jack.
happening, Jack?
Get
Hopefully
yourself
you're
to
still
bed.
there. Yeah, get in bed and don't listen to me say asshole security guard guy. Come on. But hey, I hope you have fun playing soccer.
He does. He's a soccer boy.
I've seen the little videos that you've put of some of his pretty impressive placement. Very accurate kicker of the ball. Do you call it footy for fun, or does anyone call it footy over there?
No.
That's just something Americans say to think that they're sounding British.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people might say footy, but no, we say either football or football.
All right.
Can you say that? Football?
Football.
Whoa, that sounded good.
I try to do my best at imitations and try not to go into offensive territory.
I don't get offended, so don't worry.
All right. So have a good night, Jack. We'll see you next time around, man. You'll have to hop on the vid next time. We'll cover something maybe. Well, I don't know. Does Jack watch these zombie movies?
Yeah, Jack loves.
He's old enough, right?
Yeah, but he started out with the Monster Squad and the kind of tamer ones, but he's 13 now, so he's into all his horror films as well, which is good because he always says to me, like, can we watch a horror film? I'm like, yeah, what do you want to watch? And he'll pick a film, and I'm like, yeah, let's watch it, because I watched it when I was your age and I loved this film, so I would sit and watch it with him, and I'm like, this is great feeling getting to watch a film with my son that I watched this at his age. It's great. So
yeah, it's sort of like parents always talk about, like, Christmas is brand new again when you have kids, because you get to experience it like through their eyes. And I feel like with film, it's like that, sharing it with anybody, let alone sharing it with, one of your children. And it's really cool too, because, if maybe the first time he saw the Monster Squad is when he's like 25 or 30, maybe you'd feel different about it. So to show it to him at the age that you were when you saw it, then you really get to, you get to essentially share that experience. It's like time travel.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Way to go, Fred Decker. You did it. You did it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So my number one zombie film of all time is Day of the Dead from 1985. Not the remake from 06 or whatever that was. Day of the Dead is easily my number one zombie film. It's my favorite of all Romero films, including his non-zombie films. I was told before I watched this movie that it wasn't very good, that it was dark, there were no likable characters, and that it didn't feel like the other two movies. And I felt none of that the very first time I watched this movie. I fell in love immediately. I think, like I had said earlier, it's Tom Savini's best, magician job doing the effects. They're unbelievable in this film. They are so real looking. The squibs have never been done better in any movie, I don't think. The squibs in this movie are so crazy impressive. The way that you see the skin pop out, and then the way the blood, it just and it's not like I've seen these things in real life. It just feels like they got the physics right, you know. And I love the darkness of the story, that there's really doesn't seem like anyone's going to win here, which is a big part of it. For, you know, when you're watching a Romero movie, they don't always have the best endings. Like you'd said, some characters that you hate, but you love to hate them.
Yeah.
You know, Rhodes is one of the greatest assholes of all time in cinema. I think that line that he has, the I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time, is one of the greatest lines I've ever heard in any movie, let alone a zombie horror movie. And yeah, I could drone on and on about Day of the Dead, but I love the music too. I know it's not that Goblin came back, but I really enjoy the music. And I think that this movie just kind of is the most realistic out of his movies about how things would really go down. You know, small group of military, small group of scientists go down in a bunker and try to figure out like if there's some way to reverse this, or some way that humanity can get out of this shitstorm. And to go back to, you know, to go to what you had said about Bub, I don't think it's necessarily like, I don't think Bub learns. I think what they're trying to show you there, and I think they show it to you in Dawn too, is that certain zombies, for some reason, just remember more about life. Like there's some zombies that walk around completely aimless and they only want to eat flesh. And then there's certain zombies that are like, well, I'm going to, you know, go to the mall because it's a place where I used to go. Or even the zombie that always has a gun in Dawn of the Dead. And he switches guns a couple times, but he's always looking at a gun. You know, he's just like fascinated with this thing. And so I see Bub as a character that is former military, that for whatever reason retains some memories from his human life. And that's why he's able to like kind of talk, recognize what music is. And I mean, you look at him, he sees, or you see like remorse and sadness in him when he goes and he finds Dr. Frankenstein and he wants to show him how, like, hey, I got out, like I got out of my chain, and he realizes that he's dead. And like him putting that together, to me, I just felt like this was the culmination of what Romero was trying to show in all of his zombie movies, that we are them and they are us. And Bub is like the penultimate of that. And he extends it a little bit more in Land of the Dead with Big Daddy, of course, is kind of like an offshoot of Bub. Yeah. But yeah, I think that just made this movie so interesting to me, where I was just like, man, he's really like stretched the fiber of his storytelling here, and he's broadened the scope in the third movie, and so many great characters, so many great monologues. I could go on and on, but Day of the Dead, #1 with a bullet right to the brain.
I think the good thing about both our #1s is they both feature in our top 10 as well. So like Dawn of the Dead is in your top 10 and Day of the Dead is in my top 10. So I don't think we're that far off, to be honest. So there's a few films in your list that didn't feature on mine, and there's a few films in my list that didn't feature on yours. But I think you've got some strong arguments as to why they're on your list as well. So personally, I think they're both solid lists, and it looks like some people agree. Let's just double check the chat here. Tony says can't knock it. I think that's for something else. Tony
that might be for the Dawn of the Dead remake. You know,
possibly.
It, right?
He also said, Davey, I got to know, what did you think of Ash versus Evil Dead? It was honestly the Evil Dead 4 I always wanted and more. Have you seen the TV show?
I love Ash versus Evil Dead. I thought it was so cool to see like an R-rated plus. I mean, you could consider some of what's shown in that TV show as beyond R-rated because they were on Stars, so they could do whatever they wanted. And I love seeing Bruce as Ash is always great. And you hope that they're going to find that gravitas that they had in the role earlier on in the career. I think Bruce definitely does that. I think Dana DiLorenzo and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting Ray's last name, but the two other co-stars that play Pablo and Kelly, that's a really tough thing to play with Bruce and to be funny and charismatic with somebody that is like the embodiment of that, especially in that subgenre. And I thought they did such a great job working with Bruce. I love that trio. Lucy Lawless is really damn good in that show as well. And yeah, they didn't let me down. They gave me what I expect from Evil Dead, is that each subsequent film or entry or whatever is going to up the ante as far as how gross or how bloody it can get. And yeah, I think Ash versus Evil Dead gave me everything I wanted as an Evil Dead fan, especially as a fan that enjoys a little bit more of the first couple films and the 2013 film as well.
Nice one. D'Artagnan said earlier this one's becoming more appreciated. That's Day of the Dead. Yeah, you remember you saying that, D'Artagnan.
I didn't want to tip my hat too much when you tip my hand too much when you said that, D'Artagnan, but yeah, I think it's the best.
And Tony said, nailed it, Davey. Both solid lists, guys. Thank you very much.
I'm glad we could put those concerns at ease. It's good to see that, you know. And thanks for coming by, Tony. It's really awesome to have you in the chat. I mean, it's awesome to have everybody in the chat, but it's cool that you came to see for yourself what the list is. That's awesome.
We're not just going to put the new kids on the block stuff. Robert said, thank you to you two gentlemen for having this fun discussion. Classic zombie films don't get talked about enough, probably because zombies on television are overdone to death. And that's true. Like, you get lots of zombie shows these days. I think it's the shows that are not ruining it, but shows that are taken away from great zombie movies. And I think that's maybe why there's not that many newer zombie films on our list. If you've got time, I'll just mention two of my honorable mentions. One of my honorable mentions was Train to Busan that you had on your list.
Nice.
And the other one was The Crazies from 2010, I believe, the remake.
Yeah.
With Timothy Olyphant. I felt like that was a decent remake, and it's a lot different to the original George Romero Crazies. That I thought it was a really good zombie film, but I felt like I didn't see enough of the zombies for me to go, I'll put that on my list. But I still had a good time with that one. Have you seen that one before?
Yeah, I really like that. And I think, they're definitely more zombie-ish in the remake. In the original, it's much more like it just is something that, like a virus that gets in the water, or a chemical that gets in the water that makes people lose their minds and just become completely unreasonable. Whereas in the remake, it did seem like they were going kind of that 28 Days Later route. You know, which is like, they're not so the reason why I don't think 28 Days Later is technically zombie film is because you don't have to die to become a rage infected creature. Like Brendan Gleeson just gets the blood in his eye or whatever and just becomes one. So I feel like you have to die to be a zombie. You have to have been dead, whether it's you died before and came back as when the event took place, or you were bitten, the bite infected you, the bite kills you, you come back as a zombie. So that's why that's the only reason why I didn't put 28 Days Later on the list. I know I kind of seemed like I was poo-pooing it, but it probably would have been on the list if I considered it more of like a tried and true zombie film in accordance with the rest on the list, for sure.
Yeah, but that's a fair point as well, though. Like, that's a good point, saying that you have to die first, because it's the undead that have come back. They've come back to life. So yeah, that's absolutely a fair point. Do you have any honorable mentions then that you want to mention?
Yeah, I do want to mention the Zombie Flesh Eaters movie from Fulci,
right?
Because I think there's Fulci was, he's known for his like almost pornographic-esque money shot kills. The woman getting slowly pulled towards like the splintered door in that zombie movie is just like, you're just waiting, and all you can do is like, you can feel the thing going into your eye. I feel like he does a really good job at that, where you're just like, you don't want to look at it, but you have to look at it. And I also think that that shark scene is just wild. I mean, that a guy actually got in there with a tiger shark. They're known for being the most aggressive sharks, and that he just, kind of wrangled it. Those two things alone would give it an honorable mention for me. I have a lot of fun watching that movie. I don't think it gets anywhere near being like as fine of a film as any of the other films on the list, which is why it didn't make the top 10.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'll put 28 Days Later in there, just because it is sort of zombie adjacent. And I think what it did for the genre is definitely like bring it to the forefront in a new way. So like Dawn of the Dead 04 probably doesn't happen without 28 Days Later. And to do running zombies in a way that, worked even in a serious film, because they're running in Return of the Living Dead, but it's like almost part of the comedy that they are the way they are. So yeah, those two for sure for me. And I agree with you about the zombie TV shows. I say this on my channel all the time. I think TV is like kind of garbage as far as like 40-minute to hour-long TV shows. I feel like they only exist to waste like half of that time with filler and people bickering. Like The Walking Dead, after the first season, I was out. I watched the second season, but it turned me off so much. Because every friggin' episode on The Walking Dead, they're like, we need to go get food. And Shane's like, and risk everyone's lives. And I'm just like, dude, you're the worst actor, John Berthnall. Get out of this TV show. And I just hated that, like, here we are in this sort of Romero-like setting, and you guys are wasting all the potential. I think the comic book works well for The Walking Dead. But the TV show, give me a movie where you have to tell a story. And that story needs to make sense within itself, even if you have sequels. Like, just give me a movie, because I think movie is a better storytelling mechanism than television as far as drama goes.
Yeah, that's fair points.
I've gone on so many rants here. Barry's just like, I'm never having Davey back.
No, I told. If you weren't talking, I'd be sitting just looking at the screen doing nothing. So I'm glad someone's talking. That's good. Some of the guys are just having chats with themselves about Evil Dead and stuff. Tony said the Crazy remake is great, but not a zombie film. Sorry, Barry. And I kind of agree. Yeah, that's one of the reasons, the biggest reason I didn't consider it fully for the list, because it has all those zombie beats, but it doesn't have those rules, like Davey said, of the zombie or classic zombie. So yeah, I agree with that, but I definitely agree that it's great as well. So we're at the end then, David. That's over 2.5 hours we've been doing this.
Dang, we did it.
Yeah, we did it. It didn't seem like 2.5 hours. It went so fast.
It always goes, especially like the first 45 minutes. I always look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 45 minutes. Wow, it feels like we just started.
Yeah.
It was a breeze. And like, I don't know if everyone knows in the chat, but like, Barry and I, other than, DMs and stuff, like putting this together, or every now and then, like, responding or to a comment or something, like, this is the first time we've ever interacted. Like, I mean, seeing each other like face to face. So, really felt comfortable. I feel like I've gotten to know you just from watching your channel. So, might be why I'm a little free and loose, because I just, got that comfortability going. So
it's the same with me, yeah. And again, I'm hopefully I'm an easygoing person, and you seem like an easygoing person as well. So I think that's why it made it a lot easier.
For sure.
And again, I've been binge watching your stuff as well. So I feel like I also know you, and I've seen you in live chats and stuff as well. So that's why I wanted to do this with you, because you seem like the type of person that I'd want to have on the channel and do these kind of chats with. So it was a pleasure having you on for a good 2.5 hours. And it felt like an hour long, and that was it.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to do, I know we've kind of talked about a couple other things. So yeah, if you guys like seeing us here together on the live chat, let us know, or if you're coming in afterwards and seeing it after, like, let us know in the comments if you want to see more of this. So I can be on Barry's channel more, and he can't give me any reason why it won't happen again.
Yeah. I need to come onto your channel as well, though. So
that would be great.
I don't have to do any of the work. You can do all the work.
Perfect. We can totally do that. We'll set something up for sure. Yeah, guys, if you haven't gone over to, hopefully it's cool. Can I plug my channel, Barry?
I was going to say, yeah, well, I was always, so let me introduce that question. Davey, if let me know. God, you've put me off now. So this is sorry. That's okay. This is Davey Deathray. For those of you who don't know Davey, and it's the first time you're seeing Davey, take it away. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so it's real easy. If you look up Davey Deathray, I'm here on YouTube. I'm also on, Instagram, Twitter, and pretty much those are like my big three. So YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I have a letterboxd. I just don't use it very much because I usually go to YouTube with reviews and stuff like that. But yeah, on the channel, I cover a little bit of movie news if it's something that I'm passionate about. I think there are a lot of people that do like the standard movie news stuff really well, don't want to step on everyone's toes. So if there's something I'm really interested in, I'll cover it. I do some like trailer reactions, movie reviews as well, just getting into the ranking game. There's a Friday the 13th series ranking on my page. That was a lot of fun to do. I adore that series, so it was really cool. and really getting into the live game lately. So my wife and I started a show called Movie Date with Davey and Kate, where we talk about a movie that we're both really familiar with, and we share our memories of the first time we watched it. And we kind of do, it's sort of a stream of consciousness conversational review. It's not like a review by the numbers, but it sort of falls into that territory. I've got a show called Movie Punks with my bud Foz Rotten from West Virginia, where we cover a film that's got kind of a punk rock edge. Our first episode was last week. We did Night of the Demons 2, and we're covering, speaking of this list here, on May 11th, which is the 45th anniversary of Dawn of the Dead landing in Hollywood, California. We are covering George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, and that's a live show as well, so you guys can drop in, hang out, share your memories. Movie Date with Davey and Kate's also live because we love having this interaction that you guys bring. It makes the show so much better. So, and then a whole bunch of other collaborations. I think I should just cut it off there, but you know, been reaching out and getting having other content creators reach out to me for collabs. So it's really humbling and encouraging. You know, when somebody reaches out and they like what you do, especially when they're so much more successful than my channel is, it's really cool to feel that kind of love from the community. So plenty more of that coming. And Barry, you and I are probably gonna duke it out over H2O at some point soon. Maybe
that'll be the first one, I guess. If we're going to be doing a video where we disagree respectfully, then H2O is a good starting point to see how we get on with that one. As for your channel stuff, David, I will leave links in the description down below for your YouTube channel and your socials as well. So if anyone's just checking around the descriptions, then you'll be able to click on the Davey's link and it'll take you to Davey's page.
Hell yeah, guys. Yeah, and for anyone that's looking for something to watch immediately after this, my wife Kate and I are jumping on for a special watch along episode of Movie Date with Davey and Kate. We're gonna watch Grandma's Boy and take an edible at the beginning of the stream and be hitting our pens and just kind of celebrating the 420 holiday with that hilarious film that's enjoyable even if you don't partake. And you can stream the movie on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, you can just stream it. Obviously, we can't show it on the screen, but we'll be watching along and kicking it with you guys. So
nice one. Tony said slasher films next, guys. That's a good one, because there's a lot more slasher films than there are zombie films, I guess.
That would be tough. Yeah, that's a tough one. But I think that'd make a good conversation for sure.
Yeah. Ghoul Games is here. Ghoul Games, apologies, but we're just about to finish. But I'm glad you could stop by. And if you want to watch this, definitely check it out and see both mine and Davey's top 10 zombie horror films. You probably
it's a good one, Ghoul Games. You're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah, and Dog Tanyan is one of my favorite people now. He says, I'm with you for H2O, Barry. 100% Dog.
And I don't hate H2O. I don't want anyone to think I hate it. Halloween, like Michael Myers is my boy. So Halloween's my favorite. And I'd imagine it's yours as well.
Yeah, it's just my favorite though. No, like it's quite close with Scream. Like there's not that much between them.
Okay.
But because Halloween is my favorite horror film, it just edges Scream slightly. But there you go. But anyway, guys, thanks very much for sticking with us. I can see that there's people in the chat that have been in the chat since the very beginning of this live stream. So that's brilliant. And again, I say to David off air, I've not done live streams a lot lately. So I'm trying to get myself back into it, trying to build up my live stream audience. I think we've got like 29 was the highest at this point, which is pretty good for my second stream back. But I want to try and get more out there. But again, small live stream numbers are still good. We can get to interact with people more. So if you're leaving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comments, then we'll probably read them all out because it's a nice small community at the moment. But again, thanks to everyone who's coming in, leaving your opinions down below, respecting our opinions as well, obviously. And a big, massive thank you to Davey for joining me for this top 10 zombie horror list. And it was an absolute blast. But anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for subscribing. And we will see you soon. Bye-bye.